Ironically, yeah.
So for all that trouble online, it's actually a real-life rendezvous, which...
Yeah. I mean, I have met people on Tinder in the past, and it has worked. Well, it didn't work, but yeah.
I need to know how to do the famous Stefan Smolder.
That camera is not a camera. That is your best friend, that's your lover. So you really smiles from the camera, so it goes like this.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions and looking at how we develop more circular economy programmes. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, you know, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Catherine Richards and Jake Singleton-Hill featured on the reality show Love is Blind.
Well, Catherine and Jake are joining us now in the studio for Saturday Morning Live. Thank you very much for joining us. And this is perhaps not the end result that people might have thought that they'd be seeing at this point, because you were both on the show, but you didn't fall in love in the pods, did you?
No, we didn't. I rejected him.
You guys look great together.
Yeah.
Very happy as well. It seemed like you guys were really strong, and it almost seemed like Freddie, after he admitted to you that he'd cheated in the past...
I actually respected the fact that he told me up front. I didn't even want to have that conversation, obviously. That was a conversation that we got told to talk about. And I respected his decision, but I think he felt that I was holding this grudge towards him that she really doesn't like, and which was not, and he knew this, because off camera we had many conversations where I was like, thank you for owning up, like, we can just move on from this. But if anything, on me, which is fine, but yeah, there's obviously a lot that people don't see.
So for viewers who don't know, Love is Blind is where you go and seek love and romance, but you don't see who you're speaking to, right?
No.
So, Jake, why did you go on the show?
My parents actually met in a very similar way. So my stepdad was texting my mum. He'd basically stolen the number off of a friend because the friend had met my mum in Blackpool and they were texting for like 6 months. They'd never met. So that premise of how they got together and the marriage that they had was stunning. And to build a relationship not based on looks before you met, I just found that just incredible.
So do you believe in that concept? Is it lust or love at first sight?
It's weird.
It's a bit of both.
I think, it's definitely a bit of both. And I always say, as you get older, your looks will change, but your personality will stay the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Following the summer riots and the resurgence of far-right ideologies, the former Education Secretary told peers that reinforcing shared values is now more crucial than ever.
So we're asking this morning, should we teach British values or would it be a step backward?
Or how do you even start? To debate this now, we're joined by the Campaign for Real Education chairman, Chris McGovern, and political commentator Matthew Stadland.
Well, I think these days, particularly in schools, it's quite fashionable to look at the negative sides of Britain's identity, particularly British history. Personally, I think I'm very proud of being British, and I think we need to be proud of our country like most other countries around the world are.
As Chris says, Matthew, lots of other countries do it. Heck, you only have to look at the United States, don't you, to see how sort of patriotic they are. Is there anything wrong in trying to instil a bit of that amongst our youth?
I'm just worried it sounds a little bit communist, Stephen, being told what it is to be British. I've got my own personal but very vague views of what British values might be: inclusivity, patience, being able to queue, decency, respect for democracy and the rule of law. But I mean, very many people will have different sets of values. Some people are racist. So are British values racist? You talked about the far right. I think we all know what the far right is. It's sort of violent, xenophobic racism. But if you have, say, I don't know, 3-4 million people in this country who might describe themselves as racist or far right, and they're British, or as British as you lot and as I am, does that mean those values get taught in schools? My worry is it's a little bit communist.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolan Mariappan. Really good to see you both this morning. So, Nolan, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions and looking at how we develop more circular economy programs. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, you know, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Catherine Richards and Jake Singleton-Hill featured on the reality show Love is Blind.
Well, Catherine and Jake are joining us now in the studio for Saturday Morning Live. Thank you very much for joining us. And this is perhaps not the end result that people might have thought that they'd be seeing at this point, because you were both on the show, but you didn't fall in love in the pods, did you?
No,
we didn't.
I rejected him.
You guys look great together.
Yeah.
Very, very happy as well. It seemed like you guys were really strong, and it almost seemed like Freddie, after he admitted to you that he'd cheated in the past.
I actually respected the fact that he told me up front. I didn't even want to have that conversation, obviously. That was a conversation that we got told to talk about. And I respected his decision, but I think he felt that I was holding this grudge towards him that she really doesn't like, and which was not, and he knew this, because off camera we had many conversations where I was like, thank you for owning up, like, we can just move on from this. But if anything, I think he just felt guilty the whole entire time, and he put that on me, which is fine, but yeah, there's obviously a lot that people don't see.
So for viewers who don't know, Love is Blind is where you go and seek love and romance, but you don't see who you're speaking to, right?
No.
So, Jake, why did you go on the show?
My parents actually met in a very similar way. So my stepdad was texting my mum. He'd basically stolen the number off of a friend because the friend had met my mum in Blackpool, and they were texting for like 6 months. They'd never met. So that premise of how they got together and the marriage that they had was stunning. And to build a relationship not based on looks before you met, I just found that just incredible.
So do you believe in that concept? Is it lust or love at first sight?
It's weird.
It's a bit of both.
I think, it's definitely a bit of both. And I always say, as you get older, your looks will change, but your personality will stay the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets And my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, I'm Dawn Neeson and this is The Weekend on GB News. Huge apologies, we had a slight technical hitch just for a few minutes there. Thank you for sticking with us. Really good to have your company on this Saturday afternoon. Hope you're having a lovely weekend. But we have got a cracking show for you lined up, so you don't want to go anywhere. We've got some great guests, a great debate and some great stories, including American women and sex. And we are indeed kicking off in the United States, where the Department of Justice has uncovered an Iranian plot to kill President-elect Donald Trump. The plan was apparently thwarted just weeks before America took to the polls to elect their 47th president. 3 suspects are facing criminal charges, including an Afghan national. The US has claimed the order came from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in response to the 2020 killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. Joining me now is defence editor at the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, Robert. Now, this story is on the front of some of our newspapers today. What do you make of it? To me, being a bit ignorant, it doesn't make sense for Iran to try and assassinate Donald Trump. Am I just being naive? How would it help them?
The clue's in your introduction. This is revenge. And they would take the murder of somebody or the assassination of Qasem Soleimani very, very seriously indeed. And it was one of the last acts of Trump in office, the first time round. And he was a very important figure, and there was a very important figure with him. They were the key to the operations which had targeted American, also British and other allied surveillance troops across Iraq and wider Syria. And it's interesting on that occasion, Trump later complained that the Israelis didn't support him in doing that. He went for this. He was a key charismatic figure, and the Iranians, it's in the collective memory of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, but it can't just be that, can it? It's about looking at the current situation.
Well, this is what I'm trying to get. There must be more to this than
and what
meets
they
the eye.
fear, I think, about Trump, and it's an extraordinary plot, as outlined. I mean, that they have charged Fahad Shakiri, the Afghan, who was employed by the IRGC, allegedly, according to
and he was actually in prison in America as well.
In the indictment. And they put him out on bail, which is quite...
That's the bit I was coming to.
But I don't think this is flaky. I think it's fascinating. I think that one of the things that will come out was the extent of the Iranian and Russian information operations during the election campaign, of which we learnt very little. The Russians had learned from their experience in 2016 and 2020 and knew that they had to be a lot more under the wire, a lot more sophisticated, but they would have wanted Mr. Trump to be elected, whereas their new best buddies sell them drones, sell them drones and missiles. Iran really don't want him on the chessboard in the Middle East. Why? Because he might take decisive action. It might be more coherent than the Biden, Harris, Antony Blinken, which was a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of the other. And the very presence of Trump being re-elected has changed things already. Netanyahu is going for broke in Israel, and things are happening, for instance, that there is now real American pressure to kick Hamas out of Qatar, which has been their main Gulf base, their political base, their financial base. So I hope I'm thoroughly confusing people, because it's a huge stew. But what it has served notice to Trump's foreign policy is really concentrated on China and the Pacific. Militarily, financially, competition, trade, tariffs. He is not so. He wants to close down in Europe. He wants to close down, if he can, in the Middle East. Donald Trump does not like long wars. And that's where how he fixes it, I think, has probably alarmed the Iranians, because the Iranians were opening up diplomatic channels. They were moving. They had a lot of maneuver despite their losses with Hezbollah. And, yeah, I think that it was an option. It's an option they didn't activate quite clearly, because this seems the plot, which was against all kinds of individual Jewish businessmen, anti-Iranian journalists. It was all over the place. And it was something probably that wasn't geared to the election campaign, but to the post-election.
Do you think Donald Trump is in danger?
Yeah, I'm sure he is, because it is getting worse, because it's so interesting that when it's now the world of the dominant personalities, I won't go into sort of deep Freudian analysis, but I could say that. But when you take Putin, Xi, Donald Trump, maybe the Ayatollahs, not so, Netanyahu, Modi. And they are in danger. They're in targets. But the interesting thing about all of those, I'm just thinking this through today, they're not so much in control of events. It's so complex now, they're being driven by events.
So does this put all of us in more danger, Robert?
Oh, yes. This is the thing where...
Trump being in power,
where myself, my colleagues, myself particularly, have failed totally. We're in a permanent state of near war now. And I tell you, the editorial class, hello, are you listening? And particularly a regime like the Starmer government doesn't want to know about defence and surveillance and cyber and hacking, and which is now
so what you're saying is
daily.
That Trump being in power and Starmer being in power here has made all our lives more dangerous?
Not necessarily. It would have been more dangerous anyway. Can I bring comfort to you?
No, you're not really helping here, Robert. Stay with us. I'm going to bring the panel in now. Former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire and broadcaster and journalist Claire Muldoon. I'm coming to you first on this one, Scarlett. Do you feel more frightened now? Does the world feel an unsafer place?
Yeah, I think it does, because I think if you look at Ukraine, where as you say, Trump doesn't like long wars. He wants it over with. There's only one way that it's going to be over, and that's basically giving in to Russia. Now, I do think...
It's over, but it doesn't finish.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. But actually, the problem is that if Russia can claim a victory, even though you're completely right, the next step is Georgia. OK, then it's. I mean, Putin is not going to stop. Putin believes that the fall of the Soviet Union was the worst thing to happen, and he wants another. That is really, really dangerous. And what are we going to do about it? And in a way, I mean, Robert will correct me when I go wrong on this, but in a way, Putin is right. Is at the moment there's a proxy war going on with Ukraine being proxy for NATO and actually keeping us out of it. But it is incredibly dangerous.
How about you, Claire? Do you feel safer or more worried now with the Trump being in power, with this assassination attempt plot by Iran?
No, I feel actually safer with Trump being in, and I'll tell you why. I think the linear approach from Starmer through all of this has to be absolutely, called out for what it is, and he's a very weak leader, and he's got very weak people around him. He's not a man that you would think, unconstitutionally, being a lawyer for international law, he could see what would happen. He doesn't seem to be seeing what's on the chessboard. He doesn't seem, for me, to be able to push the pawns and move the pieces. Whereas Trump, who I think we're all in agreement, doesn't like long wars. The key to unlock some of this is Ukraine, make them a member of NATO, move that. Why are you shaking your head, Robert?
No chance.
Why?
No, absolutely.
No chance. Because they would invoke Article 5.
Who would invoke Article 5?
It's not possible for Ukraine to join NATO because a power in war cannot join, and even if there's a truce, it will be an armistice.
Look, I think Putin has weakened his artillery, he's weakened his people, he's weakened the soldiers. I think it's an absolute crying shame that this war has gone on for so long, as it actually has. The loss of innocent lives is completely deplorable. But then you look at what's happening with Modi in India, with Iran and everything else, and it's an absolute hot pot. It's a tinderbox. And is this just another red flag to say that there's going to be war in the Middle East again by, saying
there is war in the Middle East?
Yes, Robert, but an even greater one with even greater scale, escalating to another world war. That's what I mean.
But actually, I really don't know why you're blaming Starmer for what's happening in Ukraine, because
I'm not.
I mean, we are. Well, you said he's
the
not
front
a
page
proper
of the Guardian
leader,
is pretty critical about him today.
I know.
I'm not blaming Starmer for the Ukraine. The Ukraine war, for what it is, was started before Starmer even got into power.
But you were saying he needs to move the pieces. But I mean,
I don't think he's got a very good policy on it, if he's got one at all.
I think the policy is he's trying to work out whether you back the Americans. Because that's what's going to happen. I mean, that's the problem. But I don't think he makes anything safer or not safe. I mean, this isn't going to cause war, but it's going to cause terrible. Is the Palestinians just they might as well give up now?
I don't want to hop over the bit. I want to stick with Georgia.
OK,
Georgia's the model. Georgia is how he is going to do it. Putin, this is not my view, it's the view of Dr. Fiona Hill, no less, we had a conversation.
Brilliant
had a
woman.
conversation about this. And Dr. Domitila Sagramosa at King's College, who has been in Georgia on and off through the year. It's takeover by erosion.
Well, they started with Crimea.
What they will do is that they will get an armistice, and the idea is just to weaken Ukraine, because the other point you made, Scarlett, which is bang on, the aim is to weaken the system of NATO, and that's where Trump is quite likely to help them. Because what Trump is saying, and it is absolutely clear, even with the mighty military of the US, we cannot handle two major war scenarios at once. Europe, have got to sort out what you're going to do to manage a peace or manage an armistice or manage a semi-Fredo war, which is what it's going to be in Ukraine. And the three principal European NATO leaders, Britain, Germany, France, have got to do it and they're all in a terrible muddle over this. But there's going to be less America in Europe, there's going to be less America in NATO, and I think that we're just not prepared for that.
Do you think that we could be prepared? Do you think that there is a plan?
There's a
Do you think
potential, there's a
Labour
potential
government
for
have
a
a
plan. He's got a thing called the Strategic Defence Review, but it's one of 17 reviews.
Right.
And the idea is, yes, it's going to be, 2.5% of GDP. Not now. Not until we can really afford it.
Because that's what Trump's pressing for as well, isn't it?
No, they will probably ask for 3%,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
And I do detect from all I hear from behind the scenes that the SDR will be this year, next year, sometime never. What the
How long
economy...
do we have, Robert? How long do we have?
No, I think we've got to get a plan together within months. Because that's where we're facing a collapse in Ukraine. The Russians are steadily gaining ground.
North Korea are moving in as well.
Yeah, but there's only 11,000 troops at the moment. It could be more. But the fact is that the Ukrainians are finding it difficult to recruit and maintain in the field.
Mm-hmm.
It is very difficult to see them going through to next summer. It's very difficult, I think, at the moment to see Zelensky surviving either.
Wow.
But also what we do have to remember is that Trump likes dictators. He likes the strong men. He doesn't really like democratic leaders.
Well, one of my interlocutors who knows both of them, Putin and Trump, Trump admires Putin because he thinks he's the only leader in the world who's up to him. And they identify with him. Yep.
Do you think they actually get on? The two men actually get on?
Yes and no, because I think Putin has contempt for Trump.
Right, OK. Leave it on that one. Thank you very much. I'm not saying you've cheered us up entirely there, Robert, but...
It's my mission.
Thanks, Robert Fox. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, there is, so don't go too far. We're talking about that horrific violence on the streets of Amsterdam on Thursday night as videos went viral on social media showing Israelis being punched and kicked in the streets. But first, let's get the news headlines with the wonderful Sophia Hill.
Thank you, Dawn. A very good afternoon. It's just gone 12:30. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines in the GB newsroom. Now we start with some breaking news in the last hour. A crash between two double-decker buses close to the centre of Manchester has reportedly left 17 people needing hospital treatment. Greater Manchester Police have told GB News that they were called to Rochdale Road at 8:30 this morning after reports of a road traffic collision between two buses. They said emergency services are at the scene, road closures remain in place and no serious injuries have been reported. We'll bring you more on this as we can. Now, Iran has rejected a report it was behind an alleged plot to assassinate Donald Trump, calling it a repulsive claim to complicate matters between Iran and America. This comes as the US has charged an Iranian man in connection with an alleged plot to assassinate Donald Trump ahead of the election. The department described Farhad Shikari as an Iranian asset residing in Tehran and said that he emigrated to the US as a child but was deported in 2008 following a robbery conviction. Boris Johnson has suggested that Donald Trump would certainly do a trade deal with the UK. The former Prime Minister said that the US President-elect is offering economic hope, but that the government would be too pathetic to try to secure a deal. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage said the UK needs to roll out the red carpet for Trump and that America is our most important relationship in terms of trade. Farage also said he would help to mend the fences between Sir Keir Starmer's government and the incoming Trump administration following tensions over previous comments. And Fortnum & Masons has apologised for a failure of communications to Paralympians who were not invited to a party for Paris medalists at Buckingham Palace. Team GB and Paralympics GB athletes were jointly hosted at the reception at the royal residence on Thursday to meet the King. Zach Shaw, a Paralympic sprinter, said he had trawled through his emails to find an invite to the after-party, but neither him nor his partner, also a Paralympic sprinter, could find an invite. Shaw won silver in the mixed 4x100 metres and bronze in the 100-metre T12 in Paris and says it was a hurtful and unfair example of how the two sets of athletes are treated differently. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's been quite cloudy for most of us through much of this week, and it doesn't look like much is changing through the rest of today and into tomorrow, with a few spots of rain around. We do see high pressure still close by out towards the east of the UK, but it's these weather fronts that will slowly be moving closer towards the UK that will bring a bit of a change as we head into next week. But back to today, generally remaining cloudy for most of us. The best of any sunshine across northern and western parts of Scotland, but Northern Ireland, southern and western parts of England, and particularly eastern coast of England, likely to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle as we head through this afternoon. Temperatures generally feeling a little chilly under that cloud, only in the high single figures, maybe the low double figures across western areas, but not feeling too pleasant under all that cloud through this afternoon. As we then go into the rest of this evening, those clear skies do persist across western parts of Scotland, so perhaps turning chilly here as we go through the evening, but eastern areas still holding on to some of that patchy rain and drizzle. Northern Ireland as well, seeing some murky conditions to end the day on Saturday, particularly over any high ground. And then for much of England and Wales, it's very grey and gloomy. Plenty of cloud around and that patchy rain and drizzle persisting, particularly over any high ground. As we then go through the rest of Saturday evening, any of those clear skies across western parts of Scotland slowly move their way across into northern and eastern parts of Scotland as we see this rain band arriving from the northwest into the early hours of Sunday morning. Perhaps one or two clear spells across eastern parts of England, and where we do see those clear spells could be turning quite chilly, temperatures in the low single figures, but in the southwest still remaining quite mild under all that thicker cloud. Starting on Sunday morning then, that area of rain across western parts of Scotland pushes its way eastwards and then slowly sinks south and east as we go through the day. Southern and eastern parts of England perhaps seeing some sunshine through the morning, and then parts of Wales, southwest England, and then Northern Ireland and western Scotland later seeing some sunshine too, but still feeling quite mild despite that cloud, temperatures in the double figures.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hello, there you are. Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're having a lovely Saturday afternoon out there. Now, the Mayor of Amsterdam has announced a series of emergency measures after anti-Semitic violence against Israeli football supporters on Thursday night. Hit-and-run attacks were carried out on Tel Aviv fans who were in the Dutch capital to watch a Europa League match. 5 people were taken to hospital and many have now been evacuated by emergency commercial flights. Quite horrible scenes you can see there now. Dutch police will now be able to conduct extra searches as a ban on protests and face coverings is also in place. For more on this, I am now joined by Director of Israel Solidarity Movement, Keith Fraser. Keith, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. What did you make of the scenes that you saw in Amsterdam on Thursday?
Well, it's shocking. You know, what more can you make of scenes like that way? But people are attacked simply because they're Jewish or Israeli. By the way, there were many English fans who went over from the Jewish community here, went across, who were attacked, etc. I know cases myself, people who were attacked, shouted out and called out Yahud, which is Arabic for Jew, by taxi drivers, etc., etc. This was preordained. But at the same time, I'm not shocked, because while I'm shocked, I'm not shocked because, you know, I've seen the situation here in the UK. You know, we have a situation here where you have hate marches every week, and I call them hate marches. Some people on the left would say they're pro-Palestinian marches. They are not. They're anti-Israel and anti-Jewish marches, because there's never any placards saying calling for peace or calling for the return of the hostages. We have a situation here where there's an elephant in the room. 32% of British Muslims in a recent poll want Sharia law, and they want Islam as the national religion of this country. The situation is, unfortunately, many of these groups who are anti the West, anti the freedoms that countries like ours and countries like Holland grant their people through freedom of religion, freedom of expression, it's backfiring because these people are using it against us. They're using it against the people who have offered those freedoms, and it's backfiring.
You say to accusations that indeed it was the Tel Aviv fans that triggered a lot of this violence by attacking people in the streets and removing flags, removing Palestinian flags from buildings, and using language again that is equally inflammatory. What would you say to that accusation?
Look, I'm a football fan myself, and I've watched matches across Europe, following my team, Arsenal. And yeah, some of the behaviour of football fans across the board is not good. And it often happens in the name of football, if you like. People chant the most ridiculous things. I've seen it. I've heard it. And yeah, there are individuals who let the whole side down. But that said, I know of people who went to the match, people from this country who went to see the match, who were attacked, who were, you had preordained groups and organised situations where there are hundreds of people on the march looking to attack Jews because they're Jews. And I'm telling you this now, there's an elephant in the room. It's across the West, and this is one micro-incident because I can only see it happening on a regular basis, I'm afraid to say, unless the authorities do something and say, look, you know, you are free to practice your religion, practice your expression, whatever your beliefs are, but accept those of others, accept that there are other religions, other beliefs, etc. Because remember, and this will come down obviously because many people will say it's because of Israel's actions in Gaza. Israel's fighting the front line of a war against jihadists. That's the bottom line. And the West is also fighting this war. It's just that Israel's at the front line. If Israel loses, they're coming for us.
OK, Keith, thank you very much. That's Keith Fraser, Director of Israel Solidarity Movement. Thank you very much for joining us. Coming to you quickly on this one, Claire. People were attacking Israel fans of a football team. This is nothing to do with the war in Gaza, or it shouldn't be.
Well, look, if you want to strip it back, I mean, historically, football fans supporting any side in any European teams, there's always been people who arrived early, people who like a good drink, and people like to kick the opposition where it hurts, metaphorically and figuratively, before the game. In Glasgow, it was always Celtic versus Rangers. There was racial hatred there and religious hatred on both sides. So this, I think, has been framed in a very, very negative way. This is a football game, a European football game. It's alleged that some Israeli supporters of Maccabi were tearing down Palestinian flags, were chanting, were saying death to Arabs the day before the match. It's reported quite clearly in some news outsources that they actually disrupted the minute silence as well for remembrance. So you think, well, you've got that in that hand, and I think every single news outlet now is framing this as an anti-Semitic attack, and I think that is crucially wrong. It completely and utterly deflates from what is happening in Gaza. You can say what you want about Netanyahu, you can say what you want about Israel, but just now, women and children are being killed within an inch of their life. I mean, it's just disgusting what's happening over there.
Claire, sorry, Scarlett, coming to you on this one. I mean, is this just football violence, people having a go at one another, or is this anti-Semitism?
I don't think it's anti-Semitism. I mean, that's what... So this is about Israel, and this is about what Israel is doing in Gaza. And yesterday, a report came out from the UN that utterly condemned what Hamas had done, but said that Israel, there were war crimes going on, and that I think it's 70% of the people who've been killed are women and children. Masses and masses of children have been killed. So I think, you know, I'm old enough to remember when South Africa was an apartheid state and would come over, and if they sent over a rugby team or something, there would be demonstrations against them. Now, there wouldn't be demonstrations against the South African people, right? But there would be demonstrations against the South African team. And I know, I mean, you know, there have been calls that actually Israeli football teams should not be allowed to play here. And I think this is about politics, and it's really not about being Jewish. And I do think to say that this is the front line of a thing about jihad is absolutely wrong, right? That it's, and it is, and I think, I mean, many Jews do not agree with what Israel is doing in Gaza.
Issue. I mean, I was reading an interview with a fan who was out there. He doesn't support what Israel are doing. He happens to be Jewish. He said he was targeted simply because he was Jewish. That is anti-Semitism.
No, that is wrong. But the whole the whole impetus behind what happened is about an Israeli football team, and so it was about nationalities, right? And it was people who disapprove very strongly of an Israeli football team. And I really don't think it helps when Israeli supporters come and start letting off fireworks, tearing down Palestinian flags. I mean, actually, you know, they're guests in Holland and they should behave like it.
They all should. And that's what I was saying. It's only an excuse.
But, I mean, 3/4 of Dutch Jews were murdered by Nazi occupation. I mean, do you think the way people discuss anti-Semitism, it's almost becoming an accepted and, I dare I say, almost fashionable?
Well, it is. And the issue that we have is the fact that if we hold Israel to any form of criticism, everyone is branded an anti-Semite.
Precisely.
That's the crucial thing.
Jew supports Israel.
No. But if you try and criticise the state of Israel or what's happening at all, you're branded an anti-Semite. So how on earth, from first principles, can you move on to try and get to the nuts and bolts of the disgusting things that have happened and the disgusting things that continue to happen, especially in Gaza?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that Netanyahu and Israel need to be held to account, and it is not anti-Semitic to say that, to really criticise them. And you know, and it was like in South Africa where you said we won't do any sporting ties, and there were boycotts, and that isn't about being anti-Semitic. It is about Israel.
Israel, just quickly, both of you, Israel should not take part in any international sporting events.
I'm not saying that, no.
I'm saying that that it's a perfectly reasonable debate, and it's not anti-Semitic to have that debate because of what Israel's doing.
OK, fine. Thank you very much. We have to move on. Thank you so much, my wonderful panel. Unfortunately, we were cut short by a slight technical glitch at the beginning there. Sorry, apologise for that once again. Claire Muldoon and Scarlett Maguire, thank you both for joining us. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. We'll have the latest from the world of sport with Aidan McGee. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you very soon. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
We all know that pensioners will freeze to death this winter because of the cruel cut to the winter fuel payment, rising council tax, the energy price cap going up, all of that. Now, instead of looking after them, we appear to have a government that seems to want to make their lives worse. Now, they might not care, but you do. And thanks to you, I have now raised more than £270,000 for Friends of the Elderly. You have raised more than the entire amount they gave away in grants for the most desperate pensioners last year. So amazing effort. Thank you very much. Now, I said I'd do a freezing cold swim to raise awareness for how cold some pensioners will be in their own homes this winter. And on Saturday, I went to Stickle Tarn in the Lake District. I'd like to give a massive thank you to the people who turned up to meet me along the way. I would also like to give a monumental shout out to the wonderful camera crew. We've got John Clark and Joe Scowen, and our health and safety maestro, known only as The Stag. I come up with these crackpot ideas, but it is down to those wonderful people to make them actually happen. I would also like to give you a little warning. There are aspects of this footage that you will not be able to unsee. I am aware that at times my body resembles a bag of milk. But you know what? If me embarrassing myself helps to raise a bit more money, then so be it. And you can go to justgiving.com/page/Save Our Seniors now to donate.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you're having a lovely Saturday afternoon out there. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate your company this afternoon. Now, it's time to go through all the latest sports news with broadcaster Aidan McGee is here with us. Aidan, I just wanted to give a very quick mention to West Ham photographer Steve Bacon, who has just sadly passed away. Started off working for, you can see a picture of him there, started off working for the Newham Recorder, and it's just very unusual. He's only 72 years old. Very unusual for a football photographer to get the reaction we're seeing. Tributes from the club, tributes from players, not just West Ham players, and fans of many clubs as well.
Absolutely. Well, he's one of those famous faces, well, no, friendly faces, I would say, when you went to West Ham. I first met him probably in about 2003, a really difficult period for the club. He was always a smiley face.
We have them a lot.
Yeah, I know. But this is when they got relegated under Glenn Roeder, who died just a few years ago, and Alan Pardew took over. But it was a real malaise around the club. It was a real mood around there, some dark clouds, and he would always brighten the place up, alongside a fellow called Peter Stewart, who worked in the media department there for a number of years. So 72 years old, you say? Yeah. Yeah, and these people, they would talk about players, don't we, staying at clubs for a long time. As an employee of the club, you don't see them very often stay for a long period anyway, either these days. And the other thing about it is that, you know, I just think that sort of thing is a bit of a dying breed, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. 35 years. Got his autobiography out. There's only one Stevie Bacon. That's on Amazon if you're interested. But that's about my club. And obviously, you know, condolences to Steve's family and friends out there. Is there other football going on? I think there probably is there?
Yeah, there's football going on.
Rugby going on as well.
Yeah, that's right. We'll do the rugby just first, actually, just because England are in action this afternoon at 3 against Australia. This used to be a clash of the ages, didn't it, Dawn? This used to be like two of the 3 or 4 best sides in the world. They're two of the also-rans these days, it has to be said. I mean, England are a competent side. I know you'll say to me, well, they got to the semi-finals of the World Cup last year, but they probably only played 2 decent games.
I wasn't going to say that because it's a wrong-shaped ball for me.
OK, well, they got to the semi-finals. Couple of good performances in there. Australia didn't even get out of the pool, and so they're 9th in the world now. Australia below Italy, who were considered minnows, still are to some degree. Australia just that much above Fiji, which you wouldn't have said was possible a couple of generations ago. And so England have won 10 of the last 11 matches against Australia. They should win today.
Oh, wow.
But England have just this reputation of they're doing everything right in matches until falling away right at the end. And that suggests to me that there's a problem in, I don't know, fitness, conditioning, more likely psychology, mental fortitude. And that was something that even the best England sides were really good at back in the day, especially when they won the World Cup in 2003. But Steve Borthwick with plenty to prove this afternoon. But I think they can get over the line at Australia, as I say, 3 o'clock today over at Twickenham. But I think they'll win.
Brilliant. Any other football going on?
Yeah, football today. We've got Arsenal in action tomorrow against Chelsea. I think Chelsea, I make them slight favourites in that game at Stamford Bridge, particularly if Cole Palmer gets back to full fitness. Arsenal have Martin Odegaard back starting. I think that'll be the game of the weekend. But Manchester City are in action today at Brighton. They're a bit annoyed because England have called up Jack Grealish. And Pep Guardiola's not very happy just because Grealish has been out since October the 20th. It's a hamstring injury, which you can never really quite predict. There are grade 1 tears, grade 2 tears, grade 3 tears. You're never sure how they're going to recover. And He's not involved in the side at Brighton today, and they're just a bit annoyed. They're saying, well, why can't the FA trust us on this? Why have they called him up? It means he's going to have to go to the camp and prove his lack of fitness, if you like. And City just think, well, we've given them loads of players down the years. Maybe this is Lee Carsley not sitting particularly comfortably in that chair. It's not something an experienced manager would do, I would say. Liverpool, they're in action again today against Aston Villa. That would be a really decent game, I would have thought, near the top of the table. Their problems could come later in the season. Trent Alexander-Arnold out of contract. Virgil van Dijk out of contract. Mo Salah out of contract. Arguably their three most important players. And they may have to deal with that if they get unsettled later in the season. Great. And we've got a clash at the bottom of the table. Wolves against Southampton.
Well, indeed. Thank you very much, Aidan. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show, so don't dare go anywhere. We're looking forward to the Remembrance Sunday tomorrow, where in the last few minutes it's been confirmed the Queen will miss events this weekend as she makes a full recovery. But first, let's have a look at the weather with Ellie Glazer.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. After a gloomy few days, it does look like changes on the way as we head into next week, but the next couple of days still remaining quite cloudy with some patchy rain and drizzle. Thanks to these weather fronts out towards the west of the UK, they'll be slowly pushing their way eastwards through the rest of today and into tomorrow. That does mean quite a cloudy end to the day for most of us today. Northern and western parts of Scotland seeing some clearer spells to end the day, and that's slowly pushing its way north and eastwards as we go through the early hours of Sunday morning. We do see a weather front arriving though from the northwest overnight tonight and into the start of Sunday. Quite a mild night, particularly across southern and western areas where we see that thicker cloud. However, anywhere that does see those clearer spells could be turning a little chilly with temperatures in the low single figures. So starting the day on Sunday then, across the southern and western parts of the UK, there will be some patchy clear spells around, and that could lead to the odd patch of mist and fog in places, but generally quite a cloudy and grey start to the day. Quite a damp start across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, but it's western parts of Scotland that will see the dampest start to the day. Some outbreaks of heavy rain across western parts of Scotland, pushing their way eastwards as we go through the morning. Eastern parts of Scotland, though, perhaps a bit of a brighter start. Through Sunday morning, though, that weather front then pushes its way eastwards as we go through the day, kind of fizzling out as it does so generally turning a little bit lighter. Parts of southern and eastern England, South Wales, southwest England, perhaps seeing a bit of a brighter afternoon as well. And then once that front pushes through Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, seeing some sunshine through the afternoon. Quite a mild day, temperatures generally in the double figures for most of us, but feeling a little blustery across the very far north of Scotland as we see those winds picking up and some blustery showers pushing their way eastwards as we go through the evening. That weather front continues to sink its way southwards as we go overnight Sunday and into the start of Monday, but for most of us, Monday and Tuesday do look a bit brighter and temperatures will generally be staying around about average for the time of year.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's only 2 weeks remaining to win Christmas on Us this year. First, we'll give you £20,025 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you £5,000 to spend on all of your Christmas presents, with a further £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. You'll get it all in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Online dating apps are still the go-to for millions of British adults, with 1 in 10 using them to look for a romantic connection.
Yes, are you one of them? Let us know. But with many apps introducing subscription fees and complex algorithms, the world of online dating has never been harder to navigate. So who better to join us to discuss this than Mr. Tinder himself, Stefan Pierre Tomlin. You have been dubbed Britain's best-looking eligible bachelor.
Yeah, so this happened back in 2016. Got an email from Tinder, and it was like, "You're the most swiped man on Tinder."
So just explain to us, for viewers who don't know, what is swiping? What does that mean on Tinder?
Yeah, so on Tinder, the app, if you swipe left, that means you don't like the person in front of you, and if you swipe to the right, that means you like that person.
So do you mind still being associated with that? It's a good thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, it made me who I am now, and I love sharing how I was successful, and now I'm like a dating expert.
What's your situation now? Are you with anyone? Are you still single?
So I'm seeing someone at the minute. Things are going well, and I'm a dating expert, so I'm always giving advice to people.
Does she know your title of most swiped?
Of course, who doesn't? It's quite hard. It's quite hard being the most swiped man on Tinder because you get a label on you. So I find it harder than anyone else, to be honest.
And where did you meet her? That's the big question.
At an event.
So not on Tinder?
Not on Tinder, ironically.
So for all that troubled online, it's actually a real life rendezvous. Which
I mean, I have met people on Tinder in the past, and it has worked. Well, it didn't work, but yeah.
I need to know how to do the famous Stefan Smolder.
That camera is not a camera. That is your best friend, that's your lover. So you really smash from the camera, so it goes like this.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon. It is 1 o'clock on Saturday, the 9th of November. This is the weekend on GB News. Thank you for joining me. Hope you're having a cracking Saturday afternoon out there. Now, as we gear up for events around the country to mark Remembrance Sunday, a veteran warns pro-Palestine marches could ruin proceedings. And in the last few minutes, it's been confirmed the Queen will miss events this weekend to ensure she makes a full recovery from a chest infection. We'll have the latest on that breaking story for you. And this is a curious one. The so-called 4B movement gains momentum, with women in the US abstaining from romantic relationships with men in the wake of Donald Trump's win. And an actual doctor advises Americans to break off ties with family members who voted for Trump. The left is truly in a meltdown, isn't it? And I don't know if you've noticed, but there has been no sun this month. Well, we're experiencing a so-called anticyclonic gloom. Me neither. What the hell does that mean? Stay with me and we'll all find out together. I'm Dawn Neeson and this is The Weekend. Yes, but this show is nothing without you and your views. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're talking about today or anything you want to have a chat about. It's the weekend and we are here for you. gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation. Keeping me company this hour is former UKIP leader Henry Bolton and former Labour official Halima Khan. But before we get stuck in today's stories, here's the news with Sophia Hill.
Thank you, Dawn. It's just gone 1 o'clock. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines in the GB newsroom. Now, some breaking news in the last few minutes. The Queen is set to miss Remembrance events this weekend to ensure she makes a full recovery from a chest infection and to protect others from any potential risk. This is from Buckingham Palace. This is also as the Palace has said that the Princess of Wales would attend both the Remembrance Sunday service at the Cenotaph and the Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall tonight. Now, Iran has rejected a report it was behind an alleged plot to assassinate Donald Trump, calling it a repulsive claim, simply to complicate matters between Iran and America. This comes as the US has charged an Iranian man in connection with an alleged plot to assassinate Trump ahead of the election. The department described Farhad Shakari as an Iranian asset residing in Tehran, and they said he emigrated to the US as a child before being deported in 2008 following a robbery conviction. And the Deputy President of the NFU, David Exwood, has said there's many things wrong with the budget and it's threatened food supplies. This comes as farmers are planning a protest in central London on the 19th of November in response to Rachel Reeves' changes to inheritance tax on farmers. Speaking at the Lord Mayor's show today, Mr Exwood told GB News about how the NFU are feeling.
NFU is representing farmers in the way it does best by working
how to change MP's mind. And there's many ways of doing that, and we will keep doing that. And everybody wants to play their part. Again, farmers are united and they're determined. I want to be really clear about this. We know how we feel about it. We know the value of what we do, and we have got to bring that to the government, because this isn't just about tax. This is actually about backing British farming. And again, that's what we're going to do today. Send out a message about the importance of farming, the value we bring to the country, and how we want everybody to get behind farmers. We have to do that. There's no choice.
Fortnum and Mason has apologised for a failure of communication to Paralympians who were not invited to a party for Paris medalists at Buckingham Palace. Team GB and Paralympics GB athletes were jointly hosted at the reception at the royal residence on Thursday to meet the King. Zach Shaw, a Paralympic sprinter, said that he trawled through his emails to find an invite to the after-party, but neither him nor his partner, also a Paralympic sprinter, could find the invite. Shaw won silver in the mixed 4x100 metres and bronze in the 100 metres T12 in Paris, and says it was a hurtful and unfair example of how the two sets of athletes are treated differently. And Sir Mark Cavendish has announced his retirement, saying Sunday's Singapore Criterium will be the final race of his professional cycling career. The Tour de France record breaker received his knighthood last month and finished the season with a record-breaking 35th career Tour stage win. But after receiving his knighthood from the Prince of Wales at Windsor Castle, he said it will be really nice to race as a Knight Commander. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour. Now it's back to Dawn.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Let's get straight into today's stories, shall we? Tomorrow morning, millions across the nation will honour a 2-minute silence to remember the sacrifices of the British Armed Forces. But this could be interrupted, in Birmingham at least, by a pro-Palestine march. The protest will mourn the murder of innocent Palestinians, but many are concerned that it will disrupt remembrance traditions that have been followed for decades. Last year, at a similar protest in London on Remembrance Sunday, more than 140 people were arrested as the march took a violent turn. We're joined by former senior military intelligence officer Philip Ingram, MBE. Philip, thank you very much for joining me today. People are very angry about this, and understandably so. Is it just time to ban these marches on Remembrance Sunday?
Well, I can see no logic as to why Birmingham City Council and West Midlands Police have allowed this march to go ahead. They must have known the controversy it would create. And Remembrance Day is not a political day. It's remembering those that have died in all conflicts around the world so that we can live in peace, so that we don't have to suffer. And this march saying it's remembering those Palestinians that were murdered. Well, the main groups that have murdered Palestinians are Hamas and Hezbollah. There are casualties of conflict who they don't fall into that category, but it's appalling. It's demeaning and taking the solemn nature of Remembrance Day away and trying to focus it for political purposes.
And as you say, the point of Remembrance Sunday and Armistice Day is to remember the price of war and the sacrifices people make to live in a free country. Surely this is what people who are fighting for peace or are protesting for peace in Palestine want. Why are they disrupting, and quite aggressively, according to today's Daily Express, why are they planning to disrupt Remembrance Day?
Well, they see it as an opportunity just to get additional publicity by doing what they're doing. I'm slightly conflicted here because, I've fought in many conflicts to give people the freedom to go and protest. These individuals wouldn't be allowed to protest on the streets of Gaza or in Beirut or anywhere else because they know that the locals, Hamas would clamp down and stop them from doing it. But so, why politicize something that is a solemn day that is remembering those that have given the ultimate sacrifice to allow people to protest? Out of sheer politeness, they should have decided to do it on another day, and I've got no problems with that whatsoever. But then, whenever they applied for permission to protest, I don't understand why Birmingham City Council and West Midlands Police are allowing this to go ahead.
This is organised by the leaders of Youth Demand, who are planning our to deliberately disrupt things. Yeah. As you say, though, Philip, just now, I mean, it's like, you know, Free Gaza is the placards they're going to be carrying, but Free Gaza from Hamas, from the terrorists that are putting the people in the situation that Remembrance Day is about remembering people that died for their country. Make it make sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense, and this is the trouble. A lot of the people who are organising these protests actually don't understand the history of what's going on. They don't understand the reality on the ground. You know, the last major conflict that Hamas had was against Fatah, against the Palestinian Authority. They had a civil war whenever Hamas took over Gaza. You know, they are a terrorist organisation. They have terrorised and murdered more Palestinians over the years than have died at the hands of the current Israeli action to try and remove Hamas. It's Hamas that use the Palestinian civilians in Gaza as human shields. You know, they are deliberately putting them in harm's way because they want pictures of dead civilians to try and use in their information campaign to try and get more people to go out and protest on the streets of the UK and other countries around the world. You know, these people are marching to Hamas's drumbeat, and that's just wrong.
Philip, do you think the government are scared to stop this march because of the reaction that it will have?
Well, I think the current government is scared to do anything. You know, unless you're putting up a tweet out about something, then nothing's going to happen. You put a tweet out, and your door will be kicked down by heavily armed police officers, and you'll be in prison within a few days. You know, if you carry out protests where you are openly displaying pro-terror organisation banners, you're chanting pro-terror organisation chants, then nothing will happen.
And finally, Philip, do you think there would be a different reaction if it had been, say, a Tommy Robinson organised march taking place at the same time?
Probably. I just don't understand the logic behind it, so it's very difficult to then apply logical thought as to what could be worse, because there is no logic behind it. From the protesters' perspective, Birmingham City Council and West Midlands Police, they should just ban this.
Indeed. Thank you very much. That's Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. Thank you for joining us. OK, let's see what my wonderful panellist, Henry Bolton, makes of this. Henry, I personally am quite shocked that they are letting this march go ahead in Birmingham tomorrow.
I think we're seeing I'm going to call it a socialist agenda of breaking down our customs, our traditions and our institutions. And Birmingham City Council is a Labour-run council. They have, a lot of them, been elected on the back of support for the Palestinian cause in Gaza, which, as Philip quite rightly, I think, said, a lot of people are commenting on the war in Gaza and in Ukraine, in fact, who have no clue whatsoever as to the history of it. They've been whipped up, by people who, have got their own political agenda. And I think that Birmingham City Council have been sort of pulled into all of this. They're part of that picture. And so I'm not surprised. Do I think it's an outrage? Yes, I do. Do I think it undermines, not undermines, but it is taking a contrary position to the values and the principles of Remembrance Day. But again, our schools have utterly failed to teach our youngsters in the United Kingdom about the real history of World War I and indeed of World War II and subsequent wars. I know a 12-year-old very well who's done World War I. They didn't cover the causes of World War I. They didn't cover the major campaigns of World War I. They didn't cover the negotiations after World War I. They didn't cover anything. What they did cover was the horrendous cost in terms of casualties, which are tragic and appalling. We remember those on Remembrance Day, rightly so. But we need to understand the context. And I think half the people who organise these protests have no clue as to the context.
Okay, right, OK. Halima, thank you very much for joining us. Bringing in our other panellists now, former Labour official Halima Khan. Halima, we are talking about the Armistead plot to swarm UK cities that's been exposed by the Daily Express today, in particular in Birmingham, where a pro-Palestine march is timed to go up against the Remembrance Day march. As Henry's just alluded to, Birmingham is a Labour-run council. Do you think this march should be going ahead?
Well, I mean, I'm not there at the march. I probably won't be attending tomorrow either. I think that, you know, I'm not understanding what the scale of the issue and the rage is, if I'm being honest. I don't think that there's much of a contradiction in remembering fallen soldiers. I know, you know, the gentleman, lovely gentleman, Henry, was speaking quite, you know, passionate about how he feels about it. I mean, you know, one of your colleagues just came up to me. I'm obviously very pro-Palestine. If it's not obvious, well, now it is. But one of your colleagues just came up to me and said, you know, Halima, do you mind if we put a poppy on you? And I was like, whatever, it is what it is. And the honourable gentleman across me isn't wearing one. So I think that... I don't have my glasses, but it's not as bold as my one, is it?
It's not. It's actually made out of the brass of a shell fired in the First World War.
OK.
Anyway,
yeah, no, so like...
I would always... I mean, I'm a veteran myself.
Yeah, no, I'm aware. And I think that people aren't having I don't think anybody sensible is having sensible conversations on either side. Now, the crux of the issue is, you know, my great-grandfather... I'm British because my great-grandfather was brought here to fight, as in, you know, be a part of the British Navy. And then on the other side, my grandfather was a leader in the liberation of Bangladesh. So for me, I don't see there being much conflict on, you know, people fighting or protesting about another world conflict that people are dying in. And I think that one of the things that we really should be angry about, you know, a lot of people are trying to paint the protests as pro-Hamas or like, you know, Islamist or anti-Semitic or whatever. You know, the government under Rishi Sunak allocated £54 million to anti-Semitism education. Rachel Reeves and the Starmer government allocated £7 million. £3.5 million was allocated to homeless veterans. That should be more outrageous than the fact that, you know, there is even a protest going on. What about the veterans that are homeless? Do they not, you know, we've got billions being paid to Ukraine every year. What about the veterans? Are we supposed to fight for a country that doesn't fight for us or represent us? I don't think so. The Tory party are very much pro-conscription. But when people are struggling to get on a bus fare, you know, where it's now £3 for a bus fare, a lot of people who are the poorer classes will be conscripted and they can't even afford bus fares to, you know, the army bases. So I think we're getting enraged and overly emotional on the wrong issues when, you know, the bigger issues at hand is, you know, how are we going to convince people to fight for this country? How are we going to convince people to remember something that we're actively not even understanding that, you know, why are we fighting now? Why should we fight now? So
I think those are all very good points, and I think I probably agree with them all. The thing about Remembrance Day, or the Remembrance Sunday, is it's actually, although very much it was the empire that fought and the colonies, if you like, that provided troops to the Navy, the Army and the Air Force in the various wars. And subsequently it's been the British thing. It is a day where we can respect the British veterans, and it is and Commonwealth, and it is a day that is really, you know, the royal family's there. It's about the sacrifices that were made not around the world in other conflicts, but in the conflicts that involved Britain, the colonies, the empire, various stages in history, of course, to protect the values that we stand for, and actually that we have in common. And what I worry about with these protests on the same day is that, as Philip indicated, they're trying to jump on the Remembrance Day for the publicity. They get the headline in the newspapers, as you've referred to. That raises the profile, but they've had an awful lot of profile, and the world is not just about the Palestinian cause. I think we need to have more of a discussion about wars generally, because I think the British people are living in a peaceful bubble, which is great, but remain often in ignorance as to the suffering that wars do deliver around the world in other places that don't even involve us. And I think we should talk about that. But Remembrance Sunday is intrinsically a day for the British and Commonwealth nations to remember their war dead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, sorry, just to add to that, Dawn, I mean, 3 British veterans were killed in Gaza. You know, we remember them too. If we're protesting for Palestine, we remember the fact that this country did nothing about the 3 British veterans. Israel will never investigate itself, and we shouldn't rely on it to investigate itself for those crimes. But what have we done to investigate what happened to those 3 British veterans? And those 3 British veterans that died in Gaza should be celebrated on Remembrance Day as well. But they're not going to be. They're not even going to be spoken about.
I would also say want to move on, Dawn, but...
No, I was going to say that there is also a British hostage being held at the moment in those tunnels as well. And we don't hear people talking about her very much on the pro-Palestinian marches.
Well, I mean, I was a British civilian that was in Palestine on October the 7th, and I stayed in Jerusalem for 2 months after. I was also somebody that was at risk if I was to be killed or assassinated by Israel for whatever reason. They thought I'm Palestinian or whatever. I don't think this country would try and, support my family or actually even highlight the fact that, OK, a British citizen was killed by Israel. Many have been. So we talk about Tom Handel.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think we let ourselves down in that respect. And I think we do not stand up for our own people nearly enough in such circumstances. There was a few years ago, there was an ITN cameraman killed. I was asked for advice on the investigation relating to that death. He was targeted by an Israeli tank. He was very clearly a press cameraman. The Israelis knew that the team was there. He was killed by an Israeli tank. Now, of course, we should be condemning whoever commits these sort of gratuitous acts of violence. I have no question about that. But the question about tomorrow and Remembrance Sunday, I think it would just be decent of the pro-Palestinian marchers to keep away from this. I mean, I've marched past the cenotaph, and it's a special occasion, and these guys aren't going to want, we're watching it just now, they're not going to want that disrupted, and nor should they have it disrupted. It's a peaceful march that's been going on for the best part of 100 years.
Halim, many people are saying that point. You have every single day to keep avoiding the wider aspects of what the situation is. You've had every single day to protest. Why do it tomorrow? Just let the veterans at the Remembrance Day Sunday tomorrow have their day.
So, I mean, it's not up to me to, make that question.
No, of course
because...
not, no, but I'm asking why not let them just have this day?
Well,
surely it would be more respectful for the marchers not to have that.
So that question needs to be put to the organisers, and often the organisers, Stop the War Coalition, are actually a middle-class white-led organisation.
Yeah, indeed.
There's not Palestinians that organise the marches or Muslims, it's not...
It doesn't actually matter who's organising it.
But I think those questions should be put to the people not who are pro-Palestine, but the people who are organising.
Dawn, I think it does matter, because all of these pro-Palestinian marches that I've seen in London, what do all the banners say? They say we're a Socialist Workers' Party.
They do have a lot of those.
Where's the funding coming from? Where's the organisation coming from? There is another agenda. It's not just the pro-Palestinian cause. We've got, I'm going to say it, far-left troublemakers who want to disrupt things. And if they've got a cause, it would be far better to have a reasonable conversation and come on shows like this and discuss it.
Indeed it would. Unfortunately, we're going to finish that one there. We have run out of time. For all the best analysis and opinion on that story, please do go to our website, gbnews.com. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show. The BBC has been branded jaw-achingly stupid over its decision to cast black and ethnic minority actors in the historical drama Wolf Hall. Is the broadcaster rewriting history? All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
But it turns out there's a growing number of grandparents who are now taking up the hobby.
And not all of them are male.
7 million gamers are aged over 50, 7 million of them. And we're going to introduce you to one this morning. Her name's Kath Bowie. She's 76 years of age, and Kath has become a worldwide star of the game Fortnite. Good to see you, Kath.
Hello, good morning to both of you.
And tell me this, Kath, is Bowie your real name?
Bowie. Yeah.
Bowie.
Yeah, it is my real name, yes.
And you do it a Bowie and not a Bowie?
It's a Bowie, yes, definitely Bowie, yes.
Bowie or Bowie?
Bowie. Bowie.
But that's not what the Jim Bowie was called, or Jim Bowie was called in the Alamo. He was a Bowie.
No, but that's what I'm called, Kath Bowie.
Oh,
She's their own
superstar. You are your own superstar. You are indeed. Well, so we're led to believe, Kath, that there's nobody else like you, or very few people like you, but there is. There is lots of people your age, your stage, doing what you do.
Yes, there's not a lot that streams. Okay, Fortnite, but there's definitely plenty that plays. Any game, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be Fortnite. It can be any game.
So Kath, how did you get started in all of this?
Oh, yeah, well, it's 7 years ago, actually. I walked into my teenage grandson's bedroom and just saw him playing what I now know, of course, what I play is Fortnite. And that was the very first week that Epic had released it. And it was just really love at first sight.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you've got a nice cup of tea on the go. You might be needing it. The BBC has been branded jaw-achingly stupid, not by me, by the way, over its decision to cast black and ethnic minority actors in the historical drama of Wolf Hall, which is about the Tudors. The backlash has intensified following claims from the show's producers that the casting choice was backed by author Dame Hilary Mantel, who passed away in 2022. Now, is this a forward-thinking idea or nonsense? And are we rewriting history? Henry, I mean, the Tudors were real-life people. Mm-hmm. They were pretty much white.
They were.
There were black people around at the time, by the way, but they're not a part of the story.
Generally speaking, I would say, look, if you're going to cast, or putting together a cast for a show, a film or a series or whatever it might be, Wolf Hall, then... you're going to choose the best actors to suit those roles. But obviously this is a slightly different thing. And you want good actors, of course, but does that do you ignore some of the historical context? Well, some of these shows depart so much from historical context anyway that maybe it doesn't make any difference. But I think just generally we've got a problem in this country with portraying history in its correct sense. You can't change history. And I think it's about the motivation. If the motivation is to to make a political point, then I think it's wrong. And I think, actually, we should keep history to what it is. There are a great many characters in history who are black and other communities that have done incredible things. So let's make programmes about them. Let's, and do that and recognise their contribution towards society in this country and elsewhere. Let's not change or try to portray history in a way that it didn't occur. I think that's how I feel about it. I'm not going to get on my hobby.
You're not a casting director, are you?
I'm not.
No,
no
obviously.
No.
Halima, this is what Sonia Douglas, a black writer and artist, who's written about it. She goes, it's really stupid. The really stupid thing about Bridgertoning these top-draw historical dramas, everyone suffers. Cast, story, viewers, author, future audience are faced with simplistically multicultural ye olde England. There are plenty of non-white Tudor stories that could be told just as well, informal and entertaining, but being woke is just easier for the BBC. What do you make to that?
Well, I just want to preface with the fact that obviously I'm not black or white, so I don't really have a strong opinion as I would if I was black or white. Either way,
it is actually colourblind casting. I think it involves someone from North Africa, who I think Egypt, and mixed race as well. So
yeah. So again, I'd like to say that if you're gonna, if the reason is you're hiring the the best black actors or the best actors of any race or appropriation or anything, then yes, that's fine. I don't see an issue with it. I think generally speaking, across the board, BBC is jaw-droppingly stupid anyways. They have their own agendas for everything. I mean, they're incapable of criticising Prime Minister Keir Starmer. They've always been incapable of criticising him. So I think that they are, an organisation that's backed by an agenda. Whatever it is, it doesn't serve...
Do you think this is an agenda?
Well, I don't know, because I don't really know the details about the show. But if this is what people are getting outraged about, and quite rightly, as Henry said, that, more stories about people of colour should be portrayed. There's John Blank, who was a trumpet player in the Tudor times. He played for Henry VII and the 8th. So, that's a fantastic story that we'd love to hear about because, I am born in England. Whether people like it or not, English history is part of my history by default. Me being here is English history. So, what I find kind of tedious about people finding this instant jaw-droppingly stupid, Jesus was portrayed by somebody who's half Slovak and half Irish. Moses was portrayed in the Exodus by an Englishman. So, same with Anne Boleyn, was portrayed by Natalie Portman, who is Jewish. So if this is the one thing that's getting people angry, then there's something deeper within that rage, because I think Hollywood's been doing that, where people...
When you say something deeper, do you think there is a hidden racism and people are complaining about this?
Well, I think for some, maybe yes. I can't speak for everybody because this news dropped today. I don't know why they are thinking that it's egregious, but there absolutely must be some underlying racism if this is the only one that you're upset about when there's many different examples.
I think, there was the discussion about James Bond and could James Bond be played by a black actor? Well, James Bond, the original setting, in the 1950s? I mean, Ian Fleming's sort of 1940s, I suppose, And, the world was slightly different then. But as we've moved forward, James Bond has moved forward with technology and so on, and James Bond is a modern character, a present-day character, in a sense. So there is no reason why James Bond...
But he is a character.
Yes,
whereas
correct.
the Tudors and Henry VIII were actual, real-life historical characters.
What I worry about... And I don't know, because I'm not in the minds of the boardrooms of the BBC. But what I worry about is that these dramas are being used as a vehicle for a political agenda.
So you think it's a political agenda by the BBC?
That I think is wrong. So when I said earlier about the motivation, we shouldn't be trying to make a political point out of this. We don't need to, because as Halima says, I think that I didn't know about this trumpet player, but I mean that undoubtedly would be an outstanding
many
story.
people have pointed that out. Just quickly, a message coming from Anita. She says, well, if it's all about having the best actor for a role, let's have a white actor playing Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, of course, that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? I mean, I think it would be ridiculous.
As I said, we've had white actors play Jesus and Moses. Yeah. So, I don't think that people were as enraged by that. So I think that, like I said, when it's selective rage, then there's a problem. If I respect somebody that's angry at it all, more than somebody that's like, oh, let me see this one because the black person is playing Judas.
There is no
But one of the things that's changed in the world, thankfully, is that I think most, correct me if I'm wrong, but back in the 50s and 60s when a lot of these films were made, and and we'd got a lot of films set in the Middle East, where the key players were white actors, but then there weren't the ethnic groups sort of represented in acting, in the UK or in America to the same extent. And I'm glad that that's changed.
OK,
so
we have to finish it there. Thank you very much, Henry. I'm Dawn Neeson on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. You all know the song Here Comes the Sun. Well, it's not. Today I'm asking, where is the sun as we experience an anticyclonic gloom? Me neither, but we'll find out after the break, but after the news headlines with Sophia Hill.
A very good afternoon. It's just gone 1:30. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines in the GB newsroom. The top story in the last hour, the Queen is to miss Remembrance events this weekend to ensure she makes a full recovery from a chest infection. Queen Camilla had hoped to join the royal family at the Royal British Legion Festival of Remembrance this evening and to honour the war dead at the Remembrance Sunday ceremony at Whitehall. This also comes as Buckingham Palace has said that the Princess of Wales would attend both Remembrance Sunday service at the Cenotaph and the Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall tonight. Boris Johnson has suggested that Donald Trump would certainly do a trade deal with the UK. The former Prime Minister said that the US President-elect is offering economic hope that the government would be too pathetic to try to secure a deal. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage says the UK needs to roll out the red carpet for Trump and that America is our most important relationship in terms of trade. Farage has also said he will help mend fences between Sir Keir Starmer's government and the incoming Trump administration following some tensions over previous comments. And the Deputy President of the NFU, David Exford, has said there's many things wrong with the budget and that it's threatened food supplies. This comes as farmers are planning a protest in central London on the 19th of November in response to Rachel Reeves's changes to inheritance tax on farmers. Speaking at the Lord Mayor's show today, Mr Exford told GB News about how the NFU are feeling.
NFU is representing farmers in the way it does best by working on how to change MPs' mind. And there's many ways of doing that, and we will keep doing that. And everybody wants to play their part. Again, farmers are united and they're determined. I want to be really clear about this. We know how we feel about it. We know the value of what we do, and we have got to bring that to the government, because this isn't just about tax. This is actually about backing British farming. And again, that's what we're going to do today. Send out a message about the importance of farming, the value we bring to the country, and how we want everybody to get behind farmers. We have to do that. There's no choice.
And Sir Mark Cavendish has announced his retirement, saying Sunday's Singapore Criterium will be the final race of his professional cycling career. The Tour de France record breaker received his knighthood last month and finished the season with a record-breaking 35th career Tour stage win. But after receiving his knighthood from the Prince of Wales at Windsor Castle in early October, he said it will be really nice to race as a knight commander. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Hill. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's been quite cloudy for most of us through much of this week, and it doesn't look like much is changing through the rest of today and into tomorrow, with a few spots of rain around. We do see high pressure still close by out towards the east of the UK, but it's these weather fronts that will slowly be moving closer towards the UK that will bring a bit of a change as we head into next week. But back to today, generally remaining cloudy for most of us. The best of any sunshine across northern and western parts of Scotland, but Northern Ireland, southern and western parts of England, and particularly eastern coast of England, likely to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle as we head through this afternoon. Temperatures generally feeling a little chilly under that cloud, only in the high single figures, maybe the low double figures across western areas, but not feeling too pleasant under all that cloud through this afternoon. As we then go into the rest of this evening, those clear skies do persist across western parts of Scotland, so perhaps turning chilly here as we go through the evening, but eastern areas still holding on to some of that patchy rain and drizzle. Northern Ireland as well, seeing some murky conditions to end the day on Saturday, particularly over any high ground. And then for much of England and Wales, it's very grey and gloomy. Plenty of cloud around and that patchy rain and drizzle persisting, particularly over any high ground. As we then go through the rest of Saturday evening, any of those clear skies across western parts of Scotland slowly move their way across into northern and eastern parts of Scotland as we see this rain band arriving from the northwest into the early hours of Sunday morning. Perhaps one or two clear spells across eastern parts of England, and where we do see those clear spells could be turning quite chilly, temperatures in the low single figures, but in the southwest still remaining quite mild under all that thicker cloud. Starting on Sunday morning then, that area of rain across western parts of Scotland pushes its way eastwards and then slowly sinks south and east as we go through the day. Southern and eastern parts of England perhaps seeing some sunshine through the morning, and then parts of Wales, southwest England, and then Northern Ireland and western Scotland later seeing some sunshine too, but still feeling quite mild despite that cloud, temperatures in the double figures.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home? Talking about? Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy. Man of the people.
It's all vibe. Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dolan, telling my panellists to shush. I don't mean that shush, I mean talk when I need you to talk, not right now, Henry. Henry Bolton and Halima Khan are still with me, thank you very much. Now, you might know the song, Here Comes the Sun. I didn't write this joke, by the way, but where has it been? Many parts of the UK have recorded no sunshine at all this month. It's called an anticyclonic gloom. Yeah, right. And this has been blamed for the fog, drizzle and low cloud. One village in Hampshire has recorded just 12 minutes of sunshine in the past 11 days. Oh, my Lord. Joining me now to make sense of all this gloom is weather journalist Nathan Rout. Nathan, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
No problem.
What's the gloom about?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, the gloom part of it is obvious. It's been very gloomy. As you mentioned, some parts of the country have had only an hour of sunshine for the whole of the month. We've been trapped under this carpet of fog and cloud for the last few weeks. What anticyclonic means is really we're under an area of high pressure, and this is exactly the sort of high pressure which we would have liked to have seen during the summer. If you remember, during the summer, we were complaining about low pressure, bringing wind and rain and all the miserable weather. We were hoping for high pressure. It didn't come. It's come now. And what happens when high pressure arrives at this time of year with the cooler temperatures is that it can trap moisture under it, a bit like a dome or a lid, traps that cloud, and high pressure is very stubborn. It doesn't move. So we're really trapped under a dome of cloud. Oh. Now, this isn't very good news for people who haven't seen any sunshine, but Dawn, because it's you, I can promise the sun is going to make an appearance at the beginning of next week.
OK. Can you be specific about how long? Maybe slightly longer than 12 minutes?
I'm thinking it's going to be slightly longer than 12 minutes. Now, the Met Office have used a very nice phrase. They say we're going to get a cleaner high. And what that means is the high pressure that's over us is going to move slightly. That is going to bring some cleaner skies and the chance of sunshine through the beginning of the week. Then it is going to turn cloudier again. It's not going to be any sort of long period of warm weather or an Indian summer or anything like that. But also with that, Dawn, it's going to bring some cooler air in from the north, because as that high pressure moves, the air moves around the high pressure and it's going to bring some colder air down from the north. So what we've got really coming up is some sunshine, which is a good thing, because I've actually heard people say they're starting to feel rather down with all this gloomy weather with no sunshine. We really do need it at this time of year. So some sunshine on the way. It's going to start feeling cooler at the end of the week.
Marvellous. Nathan, you never fail to depress me. Thank you very much for joining us. I mean that in the nicest possible way. Thank you very much for joining me, Nathan. Thank you. OK, let's see what my lovely panel make this. Henry and Halima are still with me. We were joking just now, Halima, about the weather is one thing in this country that, you know, you can talk about without it being too divided. And I pointed out that listening to my niece, who's 27, and my mum in their 80s talk about the weather is lethal. On one side, it's a nice day. On the other, it's global boiling. I mean, so it is a bit gloomy, though, at the moment, isn't it? I think we can agree on that much.
Yeah, of course. It's horrible. It makes you feel depressed, and I think it really has an impact. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's miserable, and if it's sunny, you celebrate that it's sunny because you want to go out and see people and socialise, you know. So I think.
Are you depressed, Henry?
No, I like the autumn. I like it when the nights close in and it's cosy and you can sort of, you know, go out for a walk, kick the leaves around and have a mug of tea or a glass of whiskey when you get home, whatever, I don't know. And I actually thought the anticyclonic gloom was due to the budget, but clearly I'm wrong.
Oh, controversial. Bringing politics into the weather. Oh, my Lord.
But no, I enjoy the autumn. I quite like it. And I know I am a bit of an aberration there, but I like
I like the autumn, but when it's a crisp, clear day and you can go out and you can kick leaves around and find out there's a hedgehog in there and you accidentally kicked a hedgehog as well, never a good look. That's nice. It's just this never-ending grey.
We just don't get 4 seasons in this country, and that's what it is. When the grey lasts for 8 months a year, then, you know, of course it's going to have it. I think that's why British people are miserable, really. Like, you know.
We're not all miserable. Come on.
Oh, walk around London. You won't see a single smile if you get on the tube. So, you know.
Well, that's because they're on the tube, and that's travelling on the tube.
But it is a bit different in cities as well, isn't it? I mean, I until fairly recently, I lived in a village on the North Downs. And every year we would get... I mean, we were snowed in 3-4 years ago. There's 6 houses, a little pub. The pub was open, candles and so on. We were, you know, there was beer there. So, I mean, you know, and a log fire, and it was quite pleasant.
The British, we're happy if we've got a pint and a log fire.
Snow in the winter, everything going green and flowers in the spring, you know, bright sunshine and heat in the summer. The autumn, kick the leaves around, you know, mugs of soup and so on, and then back to the snow. I agree with Halima. Wouldn't it be nice if we had four seasons
and more than one day of hot summer. OK, thank you very much. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. As Trump gears up for a second term as US president, I'm asking what it could mean for Harry and Meghan. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The number of pubs may reach critically low levels.
Absolutely. So what we're seeing is a decline in the number of pubs in Britain, and it's fallen. This is an absolutely astonishing figure. So it's basically fallen 10% in a decade. So you know, do our maths. It doesn't take very long for that to happen. So if that carries on, we'd have, get this, only 1,000 pubs by 2074. So the big question is what will become extinct first: the bank branch on your high street, or the pub on your street corner? And this is a kind of perfect storm for landlords and landladies of, you know, the cost of labour. We saw, I mean, remember when the energy prices were at the high, we just realised just how much energy it keeps to keep the lights on in the local boozer. Yeah. As well as, you know, as the cost of the golden nectar itself. So, as they call it in Australia.
Well, talking about that, I was mentioning the other day to, was it my father-in-law? I said, I used to, when I first started going to the pub, I was 15,
OK.
Half a lemonade, half a shandy.
I was nearly 16, I got half a shandy. No, we used to have Monday Club, where a pint of Foster's was £1.50. And my father-in-law was saying, I went to London the other day, a pint was £8.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And when you've got those kind of prices, why wouldn't you just go down the supermarket and get 16 tinnies for £5?
So you're going all Aussie now. Put the tinnies in the esky before you have the bar.
Good day, mate. Why not?
I agree, actually. I think it's concerning. A lot of people look at the high streets and they're very concerned that it's looking quite glum, to be honest. You know, lots of things are closing. But the reality is it's because people are not buying from the high street. They're not going to the pub, you know. People are just deciding, you know, what they're going to do in their spare time. Are they really going to go to the pub, or are they going to potentially go to, you know, David Lloyd or a Nuffield, you know, join a gym membership? They're just looking at their expenses and just deciding, you know what, we're going to actually cut costs, you know.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Gosh almighty, Henry Bolton, honestly. He's got a mouth on him, that one. Welcome back to the weekend. I'm Dawn Neeson. That's Henry Bolton. And Halima Khan, being very professional and quiet over this side, is Halima. OK, now we are going to talk Donald Trump. He's secured his second term, you might have noticed, as US president. But what does it mean for Meghan and Harry, who may have concerns about their new life in Montecito? The president-elect has suggested the royal could be deported from the US, for which he came after he wrote in his book, remember Harry's book, Spare, in which he actually confessed to dabbling with drugs. In the US, you aren't meant to be given a visa if you confess to doing that. Joining me now is royal commentator Jack Stooks. Jack, thank you very much for joining me. Harry, self-confessed drug taker, wrote all about it in his books. In theory, he shouldn't be in the USA. And Trump has vowed to be tough on people that shouldn't be there. What do you reckon? Harry being booted out?
I can't see this happening. I don't think that Trump will go all out and go just for Harry, because I think if he was to do that, he'd then have to look at every single celebrity that's ever been known to take drugs in the US. And I'm sure at the moment President Trump will quite happily look at celebrities who were voting against him and very vocally talking about how not to have him as president. And I think that is more the issue here than Prince Harry. We a while back, when on the first term that he had, we had Meghan, I think, saying various things about Trump, saying he was quite misogynistic. And at the time, I don't think Trump realized, but it was a lot sort of closer to when he was actually president, that he started to say how he disliked Meghan. And then obviously when the book came out, we then heard about all the things in the book. It was an easy target to say it was Prince Harry that was being targeted. But in fact, it was actually him speaking quite poorly about Meghan. And we also had Eric, the President Trump's son, going to town and finding out anything he could to try and dismiss Meghan and Harry as well, because obviously he's supporting his father, and anybody that goes for his father, he seems to go for as well.
OK, so we're not having them back anytime soon then, Jack?
I can't see that happening, no. They do have a house, I think, that they've just bought in Portugal, so that might be a holiday home. Who knows? Maybe we'll have them come back here and there, but I can't see him suddenly tearing home and wanting to be back in England. As long as he's married to Meghan, I think that they'll probably stay in America, and well, time will tell. We will see.
Brilliant. That's royal commentator Jack Stooks. Thank you very much for joining me now. Now, the bit I want to talk about is a bonkers story that liberal women have sworn, get this in America, only in America, that liberal women have sworn to go on sex strike over Donald Trump's election win. And a medical doctor advises MSNBC viewers, that's a TV channel in America, to break off ties with family members who voted for Trump and refuse to see them on the holidays. Oh. Henry, they've also been shaving their hair off, by the way, not having sex, and basically, yeah, well, that's it, and ignoring their families because they're so upset by a Democratic vote.
I'm sure the Republican Party and Donald Trump are really distraught over this, and I'm sure it's going to change their agenda entirely. Look, I think it's bonkers, isn't it? I mean, you know, fine. I mean,
well, Donald might be upset if Melania's involved. I mean,
well, I doubt that she is.
Well, I don't know.
We've not seen Melania.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Who's seen Melania? Where is the First Lady?
Well, that's true. That's true. And perhaps all is not well there. But you know, I'm not. You know, there are some slightly balmy people around the world, and you know, I understand this originated in South Korea some years ago, and it's now sort of picked up in the States because of this. But I think more concern is the organisations who are offering counselling and so on to their staff. I understand the Guardian
newspaper have been offering advice to journalists.
Well, there are two things about that. I know that if you counsel somebody for trauma who isn't suffering trauma, they don't need that counselling, then they can actually start questioning themselves. Do I have a problem that I wasn't aware of? You can create... Also, you are creating an environment in which it becomes accepted. My bosses think it's absolutely reasonable that I should be or could be traumatised by Donald Trump being elected. Well, I think that's, again, possibly political, because, you know, the answer is, look, this is the other side of the Atlantic. OK, not if you're an American, but, you know, we are creating a politicisation of something and a conflict in politics that we don't need. We were talking just now in the break about having reasonable conversation and dialogue and exchange of ideas and so on. That's what we should be having, not trying to
Can I just let her get her ideas over now, then?
Sorry,
Halima.
That's all right.
Right, so what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, calling women mad is a trope invented by men. So
I'm a woman. I can call myself mad if I want to.
I wasn't referring to all women.
Yeah. So I think that you know, what's happened is, you know, they're ignoring the fact that 46% of American women voted Trump. So if you're going to cancel out half of your own community, you're not going to advance feminism.
Oh, Halima, thank you very much. Henry, thank you very much. I've run out of time, so let's get the weather. And it's not raining, evidently. Here's Ellie.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. After a gloomy few days, it does look like changes on the way as we head into next week, but the next couple of days still remaining quite cloudy with some patchy rain and drizzle. Thanks to these weather fronts out towards the west of the UK, they'll be slowly pushing their way eastwards through the rest of today and into tomorrow. That does mean quite a cloudy end to the day for most of us today. Northern and western parts of Scotland seeing some clearer spells to end the day, and that's slowly pushing its way north and eastwards as we go through the early hours of Sunday morning. We do see a weather front arriving though from the northwest overnight tonight and into the start of Sunday. Quite a mild night, particularly across southern and western areas where we see that thicker cloud. However, anywhere that does see those clearer spells could be turning a little chilly with temperatures in the low single figures. So starting the day on Sunday then, across the southern and western parts of the UK, there will be some patchy clear spells around, and that could lead to the odd patch of mist and fog in places, but generally quite a cloudy and grey start to the day. Quite a damp start across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, but it's western parts of Scotland that will see the dampest start to the day. Some outbreaks of heavy rain across western parts of Scotland, pushing their way eastwards as we go through the morning. Eastern parts of Scotland, though, perhaps a bit of a brighter start. Through Sunday morning, though, that weather front then pushes its way eastwards as we go through the day, kind of fizzling out as it does so generally turning a little bit lighter. Parts of southern and eastern England, South Wales, southwest England, perhaps seeing a bit of a brighter afternoon as well. And then once that front pushes through Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, seeing some sunshine through the afternoon. Quite a mild day, temperatures generally in the double figures for most of us, but feeling a little blustery across the very far north of Scotland as we see those winds picking up and some blustery showers pushing their way eastwards as we go through the evening. That weather front continues to sink its way southwards as we go overnight Sunday and into the start of Monday, but for most of us, Monday and Tuesday do look a bit brighter and temperatures will generally be staying around about average for the time of year.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's only 2 weeks remaining to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag will get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2 or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock. Is it 2 o'clock? Yes, it is 2 o'clock. On Saturday, the 9th of November. No, I've no idea how we got into November either, but thank you for joining me this Saturday afternoon. Really loving your company. This is The Weekend on GB News. Now, OK, the US Justice Department charges a man over an alleged Iranian plot to kill President-elect Donald Trump. Iran says the claims are repulsive, but could this be the start of something extremely dangerous? It comes as the so-called 4B movement gains momentum, with women in the US abstaining from romantic relationships with men in the wake of Donald Trump's win, and an actual doctor, yeah, a real one, advising Americans to break off ties with family members who voted for Trump. The left is truly in a meltdown, isn't it? And as we gear up for events up and down the country to mark Remembrance Sunday, a veteran warns pro-Palestine marches could ruin proceedings, and it's been confirmed the Queen will sadly miss events to ensure she makes full recovery from a chest infection. We'll have the latest on that story for you. I'm Dolan just about, and this is The Weekend. But this show is nothing without you and your views, and I can't remember, I've lost your message now, but you said I've been very rude this afternoon. I can't remember whether you meant that in a good way or a rude way. In any case, let me know. But this show is nothing without you and your views. Call me rude if you want, that's fine. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation. I promise I will read as many out as I possibly can. We've saved the best till last. I had to say that, didn't I? Keeping me company this hour is former Conservative Special Advisor Charlie Rowley and former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Thank you very much for joining me, boys. They're already trouble. But before we get stuck into today's story, here is the news with Sophia Hill.
Very good afternoon. It's just gone 2 o'clock. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines in the GB newsroom. Our top story this afternoon, the Queen is to miss Remembrance events this weekend to ensure she makes a full recovery from a chest infection. Queen Camilla had hoped to join the royal family at the Royal British Legion Festival of Remembrance this evening and to honour the war dead at the Remembrance Sunday ceremony at Whitehall. This does come as Buckingham Palace has confirmed that the Princess of Wales will be attending both the Remembrance Sunday service at the Cenotaph and the Festival of Remembrance this evening. Now, Boris Johnson has suggested that Donald Trump would certainly do a trade deal with the UK. The former Prime Minister said that the US President-elect is offering economic hope, but that the government would be too pathetic to secure a deal. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage says the UK needs to roll out the red carpet for Trump and that America is our most important relationship in terms of trade. Farage has also said he would help to mend the fences between Sir Keir Starmer's government and the incoming Trump administration, following tensions over previous comments. And Iran has rejected a report it was behind an alleged plot to assassinate Donald Trump, calling it a repulsive claim and simply to complicate matters between Iran and America. This comes as the US has charged an Iranian man in connection with an alleged plot to assassinate Trump ahead of the election. The department has described Farhad Shakari as an Iranian asset residing in Tehran who immigrated to the US as a child before being deported in 2008. And the Deputy President of the NFU, David Exwood, has said there's many things wrong with the budget and it's threatened food supplies. This comes as farmers are planning a protest in central London on the 19th of November in response to Rachel Reeves' changes to inheritance tax on farmers. Now, speaking at the Lord Mayor's show today, Mr Exwood told GB News how the NFU are feeling.
NFU is representing farmers in the way it does best by working on how to change MP's mind. And there's many ways of doing that, and we will keep doing that. And everybody wants to play their part. Again, farmers are united and they're determined. I want to be really clear about this. We know how we feel about it. We know the value of what we do, and we have got to bring that to the government, because this isn't just about tax. This is actually about backing British farming. And again, that's what we're going to do today. Send out a message about the importance of farming, the value we bring to the country, and how we want everybody to get behind farmers. We have to do that. There's no choice.
Fortnum & Mason has apologised for a failure of communication to Paralympians who were not invited to a party for Paris medalists at Buckingham Palace. Team GB and Paralympic GB athletes were jointly hosted at a reception at the royal residence on Thursday to meet the King. Zach Shaw, a Paralympic sprinter, said he'd trawled through his emails to find an invite to the after-party, but neither him nor his partner, who's also a Paralympic sprinter, could find the invite. Shaw won silver in the mixed 4x100 metre and bronze in the 100 T12 in Paris, and says it was a hurtful and unfair example of how the two sets of athletes are treated differently. And sticking with the sport, Sir Mark Cavendish has announced he's retiring, saying Sunday's Singapore Criterium will be the final race of his professional cycling career. The Tour de France record breaker received his knighthood last month and finished the season with a record-breaking 35th career Tour stage win in what he likely said will be his last race. But after receiving his knighthood from the Prince of Wales at Windsor Castle earlier in October, he said it would be really nice to race as a knight commander. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour. Now it's back to Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Right, OK, let's get straight into today's stories after I read this message out from a fellow Dawn. Love the name Dawn. Dawn says, the left should be encouraged not to reproduce. And this is the story we're going to be discussing a bit later as well as in the last hour, about how women in America are so traumatised by Trump getting elected, they'll put a sex ban on their partners for 4 years. But that was a great comment, Dawn. Dawns have good ideas. Most dawns have good ideas. Right, OK, let's get straight into the story, shall we? Tomorrow morning, millions across the nation will honour a 2-minute silence to remember the sacrifices of the British Armed Forces. But this could be interrupted in Birmingham by a pro-Palestine march. The protest will mourn the murder of innocent Palestinians, but many are concerned that it will disrupt remembrance traditions that have been followed for decades. Last year, a similar protest in London on Remembrance Sunday, more than 140 people were arrested as the march took a violent turn. Charlie Rowley, coming to you first on this one. Surely, the one day of the year we can have the right to ban a march has to be this one.
Yes, actually, I think that's probably right. I wasn't quite sure. I wasn't sure what you're going to ask, but I think that's right, because the whole point of the UK having the freedoms that we exercise is being able to have free speech, to exercise free speech. You know, we have the freedoms that we have and enjoy, which could be 364 days of the year, because of the sacrifice that people made, not just in the 2 world wars, but subsequent conflicts that we've had, where families have been pulled apart, where people will never see their loved ones again, because of the sacrifice, as I say, that we now all enjoy here at GB News and all across the country. And if you think, therefore, it's therefore appropriate to descend on, whether it's Birmingham, London or any other city centre tomorrow, to hijack the event for your own cause, that you feel so selfish that your cause is better and above any other on that day, I think is abhorrent. It is unnecessary, it's unwanted, it's unneeded. And I think people should absolutely, if they're plotting anything in this kind of way, should think twice to allow families to remember and for this country to engage in a history lesson as to why we are able to speak freely today. We have so many divisions in our country. We know that. Politics has exposed that in America only all too well. But it is a day where you can reflect and think to yourself, whatever the different opinion you have of somebody else, and they could be standing right next to you during Remembrance Sunday. But that is the one moment where silence should fall across the country, where we should take that time, whatever our cause, whatever beef we've got with anything in the country, we pause and we reflect and understand that whatever the divisions we have, we're only able to exercise that free speech, to articulate the divisions, to articulate our differences because of the sacrifice and the freedoms that those men and women, brave men and women, fought and lost their lives on. So I think that is why it's hugely important that this goes off without any kind of hitch at all.
A lovely speech, Charlie. Thank you very much. Stephen, this is in Birmingham. Front page of your Daily Express today. Armistice Day plot to swarm UK cities and cause disruption. Surely Birmingham Council should put a stop to it tomorrow.
Yeah, well, let's get a couple of things straight. You'd have to be damn stupid to try to actually disrupt Remembrance Sunday. But unfortunately, some of the people we're talking about, that doesn't necessarily...
Oh, right, hold on. Sorry, right, I think we've got a problem with your mic. We just need to correct it. Yeah. Sorry, Charlie. So, I mean, why don't Birmingham Council stop this?
Well...
do you think they'd stop a far-right patriotic march at the same time?
Well, I think, regardless of whether you're on the far right, if you're planning a march to sort of, what they may argue, to double down on their support for people who are maybe veterans or in the armed forces, I don't think that would be welcomed by actually, the British Legion. It might be, I can't speak for them, but I think they would want a remembrance service to get underway that isn't interrupted, to allow people to have that moment of reflection. Whether it's on the far left, whether it's far right protesters, whether it's Just Stop Oil, whether it's a pro-Palestinian march, whether you're highlighting anything that you might think is something that needs to be highlighted in this country or abroad. People need to just think twice. And I do hope Birmingham have the power to ban protests, but certainly the police, if they feel that anybody is turning up to cause trouble or to use that event in a way for their own purpose, rather than what the event that the millions of people across this country will be watching and remembering and reflecting on, I think the police should take a very heavy-handed approach.
I hope we're back online now. Look, I come from West London, very, very multicultural part of the world. And I'm the president of my local branch of the Royal British Legion. And believe you me, nobody interrupts that service, either on Sunday or on, actually, Armistice Day on the Monday. But look, let's have a look at what happened in Amsterdam a couple of days ago, when you had mobs on scooters driving around the city trying to attack and possibly attempt to kill supporters of Maccabi Tel Aviv. Now, what's happened is the mayor of Amsterdam she has come up with a very, very enormous package of policies. The Palestinian flag has been banned from being flown in public. And I think that that's probably gone too far in one direction. I think what Charlie said earlier on was elegiac, and it was, you know, I think we should actually put that, you know, up on the screen as our mission statement. We actually do cherish freedom of speech. And I think that what they've done in Amsterdam was perhaps an overreaction. What we're going to do in this country is dignified, quiet, silent respect. That is the word. Now, I tell you the other odd thing about the Greenford War Memorial. We'll put all those wreaths there tomorrow. There'll be about 50 wreaths, and they will still be there November next year. People don't take them away. They respect them.
Most people do. Why do you think we have... I'm staying with you on this one, Stephen. Why do you think we have, in some areas, lost respect for Remembrance Sunday?
Because I think there's separate issues here. One is the Remembrance Sunday in the totality. I mean, oddly enough, in Greenford, we get more and more people at the parade for the last 2 or 3 years, huge numbers. But I think this pro-Palestinian thing is a different one. They see the opportunity to actually get the publicity and to actually be more shocking and more horrifying than they would otherwise. They thrive on publicity. They're leeches on the body politic. They desperately want to get that publicity, and therefore they think this is an easy way of doing it. The fact that it's going to insult the memories of those men and women who Charlie quite rightly spoke about. And let's not forget, there are people today serving in the line of danger. There are people actually today who will be looking back at their homeland and be drawing strength from the fact that we will be showing them respect. How painful must it be for somebody who's actually maybe, you know, on the Ukrainian border, seeing people in this country acting like that? I don't think it's a lack of respect. I think it's, quite frankly, we actually need to sometimes remind people that but for this sacrifice, you would not be able to open your mouth in public.
Charlie, they would say that they are reminding people that they are fighting for the people who are fighting for the people of Gaza. That's what they're doing. They're protesting for people that are fighting today for a country similar to what what happened in World War I and World War II. Do you understand that viewpoint?
I understand if they have a cause, if they want to protest, and you know they're obviously wanting to highlight perhaps the response that Israel has conducted on the back of the terrorist attack on the 7th of October. Now, there's a question mark. Of course, Israel has a right to defend itself. It has a right to respond. Of course, there'll be questions over the proportionality of that, and you know, millions of displaced people, you know, children losing their lives, you know, Gazans. So, of course, I can understand why people want to highlight it. But you can protest, I think, most weekends in London, it seems to me, or any other city, for that matter. You can protest maybe on the Monday or the Tuesday, or you could have protested last weekend. You can protest the weekend after. I don't understand and don't accept that it has to be tomorrow or over the remembrance period, where I'm in total agreement with Stephen that, you know, that is a moment where people should be able to reflect on why we have the freedoms we have today. And I think it goes to the history point as well. You know, we talk so much, and there are too many people that say we need to tear up the national curriculum, or we need to focus on other things in history lessons that people... when we forget the fundamentals, which is about, you know, Nazi Germany and, you know, prior to...
I'll tell you one of the things about the... if I may, sorry, just return to Greenford for a second. If you're actually watching the Greenford Parade, you will see that there will be representatives of the United Indian Ex-Servicemen's Association, there are the Gurkhas, there's the West Indies Regiment, there are people from all over the world, because this wasn't just a white person's war. No. This was a global war, and as it is today. And I know many, many people in the Asian and African Caribbean and the African communities who are utterly ashamed of the proposal that anyone would try to disrupt what is not just our day, but it's their day as well. It is all of our day.
It wasn't, as you say, it was many, many races and nationalities. Now, we are going to move on to our... something completely bonkers. It's a screeching gear change, as we say in the business. This is about the left being in meltdown over, Trump, because Liberal women have sworn to go on a sex strike. They've also shaved their hair off, by the way, over Donald Trump's election win. And a medical doctor from Yale University advises Americans to break off ties with family members who voted for Trump and refused to see them on the holidays. Seeing as you were holding your head in your hand, Stephen, about this...
Oh, God, Stephen's already shaved his hair off.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know a lot about sex bans as well.
I've been married for 48 years. But...
Exactly. Welcome to my world.
No, here's an odd thing. In 400 BC, you had the Peloponnesian Wars.
You remember really well.
Well, it seems like yesterday to me. And there's a woman called Lysistrata who actually introduced this idea of a sex ban. Lysistrata means, in Greek, it means like disbanding the army, or Lysistrata. And she brought out this sex ban, and it was actually immortalised in a play by Aristophanes, you know, the famous bloke who runs the cafe around the corner. But
Good bacon sarnies.
But the thing is, it didn't work. Firstly, the men, how can I put this delicately, found their pleasure in other directions.
Right. Delicately, well done.
But the second thing is, it actually didn't stop the Peloponnesian Wars. Now, I have to say, as someone who is firmly of the left, but not quite the shave-heading, sex-denying left, I think this is talk about a massive own goal. I mean, come on. And it's... I'm sorry, this is just pretty damn ridiculous. I don't know who this doctor is, but I think he or she should actually re-examine...
It was a she, and she was... to be fair to her, she was advising about, you know, if you are so traumatised that a family member disagrees with you politically, it happens, then, you know, you're OK not to talk to them. Charlie, does that make any sense? Does any of this make any sense?
Not really, no. I mean, look, people... I'm trying to find a way in which you can, draw an equivalence or understand why people do what they sort of do in these extreme situations. But I think the more people get het up, and it is getting het up in their own world about how tragic this may be for them, how bad they think Donald Trump is going to treat them, what terrible decisions he's going to make, how on earth can America have made this choice again? I think he's not even in office yet. And I think you're better off just to wait and see what he actually does.
So the sex ban's fine, but wait till he gets in office.
Well, I mean, I don't know what that sort of solves anyway. Is it because your husband might have voted for Trump and therefore women are sort of taking a stand against that? Is that the angle? Or is that the sort of people are just saying, I can't bear that, I can't be myself at all, I can't enjoy any kind of pleasure in life because Donald Trump is now in charge and I'm going to... but why you have some sort of self-inflicted sort of, sort of bans on anything?
I mean, I suppose the nearest comparator we got in this country is after the Brexit thing. And my son confessed to having voted the wrong way back in June 2016.
Oh, there is no wrong way.
And so I said, did you have any trouble with your football team? He said, no trouble at all. We all voted for it.
Right, yes, yeah. But it's true. I mean, I think, look, families and relationships, I think, should always be, and probably for healthy balance within the family, or whatever your family situation, it should be above politics.
Keep the politics out of the bedroom.
Keep the politics out of the bedroom, exactly that. And I think because there will come a time, and, it is slightly...
We're walking a tightrope here.
It is bonkers. It is bonking and bonkers. But, if you have take a turn for the worse in life, and you need to see your family, or you need to ask for help, or whatever, but the idea that you refuse to talk to them because they just voted in an election for you, I think that's a little bit far-fetched.
Thank God this isn't live.
Yes. Keep sex and politics separately is the advice from Stephen Pound, who knows a lot about at least one of those subjects.
It's nostalgia in my case rather than Viagra.
He's got a very good memory. Right, for all the best analysis, for all the best analysis and opinion on that story and more, please do go to our website, gbnews.com. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Manchester United, football on the brain. Manchester Police have announced a heightened presence of armed officers at the city's Christmas market this year, as well as other measures such as anti-terror bollards. Does a police presence at a mulled wine stall depress or reassure you? All of that and much more to come. This is GB News. I'm Dawn Neeson. We'll see you very soon.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
It seems that the younger generation's interest in literature is waning. Academics argue that educational policies have failed to encourage reading for pleasure, contributing to declining numbers of English literature students and a shift towards young adult books rather than classic novels. According to 2023 figures from the National Literacy Trust, the number of 8 to 18-year-olds who say they enjoy reading has sunk to its lowest level for almost 20 years, with a quarter fewer reading each day over that same time period. To share more with us about this topic, I'm joined now by the journalist Charlotte Lytton. Charlotte, welcome back. Lovely to talk to you again. Tell us your perspective on this issue. What is happening?
Well, speaking to academics,
we can't deny, it seems, that there is a big problem here, and it starts right at school. As you read there, young children simply don't enjoy reading for pleasure as they did before. We can't deny that is also a massive part because of smartphones, because kids now are faced with all of these things vying for their attention. They just don't have to sit down and entertain themselves with a long book and nothing else as they did before. As we see from those figures with people going to study humanities at university, the decline is just going all the way because people simply are not interested in reading for pleasure as they were.
Do you get any feeling that education policy or that teachers are taking steps to counter this?
Well, there is a review of the curriculum going ahead right now, but school is a huge part of it. One of the things that has come up in this conversation is whether teachers now are dealing with crowd control, which means they can't simply encourage reading for pleasure because they're simply trying to get a hold of the students they have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Oh, there you are. Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Now, as the festive season approaches, yes, I know you're not ready, are you? Nor am I. Christmas markets are popping up across the country. Lovely. But how safe do you feel attending them? Manchester Police have announced a heightened presence of armed officers at the city's market this year, as well as other measures such as anti-terror bollards. Is this a reassuring sight as you're standing there with your mulled wine abusing Santa's elf? Or is it a sad sign? Even at Christmas, we are reminded of how dangerous our cities have become. I'm joined in the studio by former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley, who I have to say is looking terribly dapper.
Thank you.
Yeah, is this your Christmas jacket already?
Just dressed down Saturday.
Just dressed down Saturday? Well, I'd hate to see dress up Saturday evening. Now, Peter, look, I'm joking, but this story is worrying. It's a Christmas market, and this is a social media message put out by Manchester City Centre Police saying, you know, we're going to have armed police officers patrolling the Christmas market.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's changed that we have to have this?
It's a modern life factor of 2024, and I welcome it. In fact, what's happened was after Greater Manchester Police had put the post out with 2 armed police officers in the photograph, they'd put a line together with it, keeping Manchester safe, words to that effect. And many people replied on social media, keeping us safe from who?
What?
Well, of course, we know what the inference of that is, keeping us safe from rabid Islamists who would want to wipe us from the face of the earth. They attack crowded places. So, of course, we need firearms officers to patrol them. It's all good, but Manchester kind of lost it and took the post down after people had asked that question. It's a fact of life. Go to an airport, there'll be armed police officers. We've seen them whatever airport you've been to. We need police officers patrolling, armed or not. We should have more of it. And I hope everybody continues to not be cowed or bowed by any fear, but go and enjoy the market.
Because we did see back in 2016, wasn't it? There was a Berlin truck attack on the Christmas market in Berlin, where 13 people in the end were killed.
Look at the first London Bridge attack, a crowded marketplace, not a Christmas market, but...
So do you think we're not being told something here? Do you think they've heard that there might be an attack planned, or...?
No, because if an attack was imminent, then the threat level would be raised and the government would have made an announcement. So we don't need to read into it something that's not there. But I think we should be reassured. We should welcome these patrols. I would like so many more thousands of police officers to be patrolling the streets, because it might go some way to arresting this epidemic of crime that's blighting our nation.
But if this is aimed, as you suggested earlier on, Peter, at terrorism attacks, surely the answer would be, rather than having more armed police on the streets, is to stop the people that would carry out these attacks coming to the country in the first place.
Yes, absolutely, and I'd be a huge supporter of that. But what this picture and these posts also do is they serve as an element of deterrent to those who would go to a market and carry out an attack. Look at so many terror attacks that have been thought up, dreamt up, influenced by lone wolves, people who go out and do it themselves and create a lot of carnage with simple weaponry such as knives. This is a good deterrent. I think this might deter somebody from doing such a thing. And remember, all these kind of campaigns are supported by the brilliance of our security services and our counter-terrorism police. Every day when we wake up and there is no news of a terror attack is a compliment to them and something we should all be grateful for.
But Peter, I spent 22 years working in the House of Commons as an MP and surrounded by people with machine guns and well-armed police officers. And yet your former colleague, PC Keith Palmer, God rest his soul, was murdered by a terrorist on that particular day. So there's no guarantee. I think we have to actually involve the public a lot more. We have to actually up the ante here. But I think the reality is, if I was a Manchester policeman, remembering what happened with the Ariana Grande concert, I would be very, very conscious and very well aware of this. However, as a father, as a grandfather, what am I going to say to my granddaughter if she says, what is that man holding a machine gun for? Or submachine gun or a light machine gun? I think there's got to be some middle way in which we can actually use intelligence a bit more, have a visible police presence. I still think having people tooled up walking around a Christmas market can actually in some cases be counterproductive, because it will actually increase the fear factor rather than decrease it. I'm with you almost all the way, Peter, but I'm still thinking of the impact on those young kids, never mind the mulled wine, but in the Santa's grotto.
Well, our children, when they were young, of course, they sat round a dinner table with parents who had over 50 years of policing experience between them. So they were taught about the very harsh realities of life.
That's the exception, though, isn't it?
Particularly in regards to paedophiles, for example. From a fairly young age, our kids were aware that there are predators out there that would do you harm. Likewise, with terrorists and such like. Don't raise your children to think that it's a pink and fluffy world, because it ain't. Give them the realities, they'll be better prepared to deal with them.
But Charlie, bringing you into this, it should be a bit more of a pink and fluffy world than we're currently living at the moment. Why are we living in fear of terrorism committed by people that probably shouldn't be in this country every day?
Well, I think that's right, but the answer is for the reasons that Peter's already outlined, because there are bad actors out there. There are people that want to harm you, there are people that want to hurt us, there are people that want to hijack events that should be fun, family, friendly, fluffy events. I wasn't quite sure how I would feel about it, but I do think if I did see a couple of armed police officers at, whether it's Winter Wonderland in central London, whether it's another sort of event elsewhere, I think I would be reassured. I don't necessarily want to see them up and down the markets every sort of 30 seconds, knowing that I'm maybe being followed, or they're like sort of protection officers. I want to know that they're there, but I also want to be able to have fun and not have that fear. I just want to know at the start that if anything should go wrong, if there's going to be any kind of situation, we've got the police presence, and that's brilliant because I've seen them. But I don't want to see them when I'm buying my mulled wine, or if I'm sort of going on a Christmas rise or whatever, every 30 seconds, because that would then intimidate me. That would make me think, gosh, maybe this isn't actually a safe place to be if you've got that much of a presence. But it's finding that balance, that operationally as well as protective.
Peter, what a lot of people are saying on here at the moment is that because of the way the Southport incident was handled, and we weren't maybe told the full truth about that incident, people are now saying, I'm not being told the full truth about this. Why? There wasn't armed police there last year. What is different about this year?
And that's an entirely valid standpoint to have. And in fact, it's being shown that the establishment, whether that be the Independent Office of Police Conduct, the CPS, the government, whosoever it may be, we know that the truth is being selectively told at times when they think it suits their agenda. That, of course, is fundamentally wrong, but it's a different argument. I recently have been fortunate enough to travel quite extensively in Europe and have encountered many armed police officers, just by way of being stopped to show ID, to show train tickets and the such like. And the more I see armed police officers, the more I get reassured and the more I get towards thinking maybe we need more guns in the hands of suitably trained police on the streets of Britain and not less.
What do you make of that, Stephen?
I think there's only 2 police forces in the world which are completely unarmed, aren't there? It's basically us and New Zealand. So exception. I'm actually rather proud of to be a citizen of a country where the police aren't tooled up all the time. I'm proud of that. I think it's a good thing. I think if every single person, every police officer was armed, you get the situation you get in America where suddenly there's a great flow of weaponry into the black market because there's an enormous extra provision of weaponry being provided. At the moment, there's very, very little leakage from the Metropolitan Police Firearms Unit into the criminal circles, very little, if any, at all, unlike some branches of the services where things do get stolen. I think, by and large, we've got something to be proud of in this country. If these loathsome scumbags who you were talking about earlier on actually destroy that, then they destroyed something much more significant than they're aiming at. They actually destroyed the balance of decency and trust we have in this country. Peter, you talked about your children. I think your children were fortunate to have 2 police officers as their parents who did tell them the facts of life. Most of us want to tell our children the facts of life, but equally, sometimes it's very, very difficult to explain to them that if they step outside the door, they could be in danger. I remember when I was in Northern Ireland, Special Branch talking to my family about that. You've got to get that balance. It ain't pink and fluffy, but on the other hand, it's not a nightmare every minute of the day.
OK, now that's a good message to leave on for now. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News. Thanks very much to Peter Blexley, indeed, for joining us. Really appreciate your time. There's loads more coming up on today's show. We're talking about that horrific violence on the streets of Amsterdam on Thursday night as videos went viral on social media showing Israelis being punched and kicked in the street. But first, let's get the news with Sophia Wenzel.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 2:33. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. The Queen will miss Remembrance events this weekend to ensure she makes full recovery from a chest infection. A palace spokesperson has said while this is a source of great disappointment to the Queen, she will mark the occasion privately at home and hopes to return to public duties early next week. This comes as Buckingham Palace has said the Princess of Wales would attend both the Remembrance Sunday service and the cenotaph and the Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall tonight. Boris Johnson has suggested that Donald Trump would certainly do a trade deal with the UK. The former Prime Minister said the US President-elect is offering economic hope, but that government would be too pathetic to try to secure a deal. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage said the UK needs to roll out the red carpet for Trump and that America is our most important relationship in terms of trade. Farage also said he would help mend fences between Sir Keir Starmer's government and the incoming Trump administration following tensions over previous comments. In other news, Deputy President of the National Farmers Union, David Exwood, has said there's many things wrong with the budget and it's threatened food supplies. This comes as farmers are planning a protest in central London on the 19th of November. It's in response to Rachel Reeves's changes to inheritance tax on farmers. Speaking at the Lord Mayor's show today, Mr Exwood told GB News about how the NFU are feeling.
NFU is representing farmers in the way it does best by working on how to change MPs' mind. And there's many ways of doing that, and we will keep doing that. And everybody wants to play their part. Again, farmers are united and they're determined. I want to be really clear about this. We know how we feel about it. We know the value of what we do, and we have got to bring that to the government, because this isn't just about tax. This is actually about backing British farming. And again, that's what we're going to do today. Send out a message about the importance of farming, the value we bring to the country, and how we want everybody to get behind farmers. We have to do that. There's no choice.
And Sir Mark Cavendish has announced his retirement, saying Sunday's Singapore Criterium will be the final race of his professional cycling career. The Tour de France record breaker received his knighthood last month and finished his season with a record-breaking 35th career Tour stage win. But after receiving his knighthood from the Prince of Wales at Windsor Castle on the 2nd of October, he said it will be really nice to race as a Knight Commander. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's been quite cloudy for most of us through much of this week, and it doesn't look like much is changing through the rest of today and into tomorrow, with a few spots of rain around. We do see high pressure still close by out towards the east of the UK, but it's these weather fronts that will slowly be moving closer towards the UK that will bring a bit of a change as we head into next week. But back to today, generally remaining cloudy for most of us. The best of any sunshine across northern and western parts of Scotland, but Northern Ireland, southern and western parts of England, and particularly eastern coast of England, likely to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle as we head through this afternoon. Temperatures generally feeling a little chilly under that cloud, only in the high single figures, maybe the low double figures across western areas, but not feeling too pleasant under all that cloud through this afternoon. As we then go into the rest of this evening, those clear skies do persist across western parts of Scotland, so perhaps turning chilly here as we go through the evening, but eastern areas still holding on to some of that patchy rain and drizzle. Northern Ireland as well, seeing some murky conditions to end the day on Saturday, particularly over any high ground. And then for much of England and Wales, it's very grey and gloomy. Plenty of cloud around and that patchy rain and drizzle persisting, particularly over any high ground. As we then go through the rest of Saturday evening, any of those clear skies across western parts of Scotland slowly move their way across into northern and eastern parts of Scotland as we see this rain band arriving from the northwest into the early hours of Sunday morning. Perhaps one or two clear spells across eastern parts of England, and where we do see those clear spells could be turning quite chilly, temperatures in the low single figures, but in the southwest still remaining quite mild under all that thicker cloud. Starting on Sunday morning then, that area of rain across western parts of Scotland pushes its way eastwards and then slowly sinks south and east as we go through the day. Southern and eastern parts of England perhaps seeing some sunshine through the morning, and then parts of Wales, southwest England, and then Northern Ireland and western Scotland later seeing some sunshine too, but still feeling quite mild despite that cloud, temperatures in the double figures.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Thank you very much. Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you're having a lovely Saturday afternoon over there. Lots of love in the room for Peter Blexley's jacket, apart from Nicholas. Hello, Nicholas said, is that jacket made from an old sofa? I'm just leaving that one there. OK, now, Nana... Stop it. Nana Akweer has joined us in the studio, and Nana always has a cracking show coming up for you. So what is it today, Nana?
Well, I haven't had a chance to really celebrate the whole Trump thing, so everywhere we're all going to be talking about whether Trump is going to be good for the UK. And in my niggle, we've got the meltdown, the wokerati, the meltdown of them all getting all so upset that Donald Trump, who is able to negotiate with people like Kim Jong-un and also Vladimir Putin and all the difficult-to-reach world leaders, they're all upset that he is able to have a relationship with them, which is utter madness. Also, Fatima Whitbread will be live in the studio just after 5 o'clock. She has written a wonderful book for Christmas, and it's all about the care system and adoption. As you know, she was adopted. So we've got lots to get through. Also, Rachel Reeves and her, a lot of people calling her Rachel Thieves, with this NI increase just for the private sector. So all of that we're going to be discussing. We're not going to allow that budget to go under the rafters just because Donald Trump is the president-elect.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Now, that's Nana's show starting at 3 o'clock straight after this one. Now, the Mayor of Amsterdam has announced a series of emergency measures after anti-Semitic violence against Israeli football supporters on Thursday night. Hit-and-run attacks were carried out on Tel Aviv fans who were in the Dutch capital to watch a Europa League match. 5 people were taken to hospital and they have now been evacuated by emergency commercial flight. Dutch police will now be able to conduct extra searches as well as a ban on protests, and face coverings is also in place. I'm still joined by former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley because A, he's a copper, B, he goes to football, and C, he's wearing a very nice jacket. And we also had the panel with us still, former Special Advisor Charlie Rowley and former Labour MP Stephen Bound. So I'm surrounded by beautiful young men.
In my dreams.
And Stephen Pound. So can we just talk about what we've witnessed in Amsterdam? Peter, I'm coming to you first on this one. What did you make of the scenes in Amsterdam on Thursday?
Well, I've tried to study as much as I can of the footage and read the news output. What does appear to be clear is that at some point, Maccabi Tel Aviv Football Club fans pulled down a Palestinian flag. Mm-hmm. There's some reports of an altercation with a cab driver, but yet to be verified. What we do know, however, is that the Jewish fans of this team from Tel Aviv were hounded by a mob and they were targeted. And I think if this would happen in London, we might well have a similar set of circumstances. These are people who are hell-bent on committing very serious crimes against people of the Jewish faith.
So this is not just ordinary football violence, as some people are suggesting. This is straightforward anti-Semitism in a city, Amsterdam, where Anne Frank's house is in there, that saw the massacre of Jews during the Second World War.
Most football clubs have an element of troublesome supporters, but this is more politics than football.
OK. I heard you mumbling agreement there, Stephen?
Yeah, this is not about football. You're West Ham. I mean, I've been to a few West Ham Millwall games and it got a little bit tasty. This is completely different. This is absolutely nothing like that. This is actually hunting down individuals. There's one particularly horrific incident, which Peter will have spotted, where some bloke who's not a Tel Aviv supporter tries to help this lad who's getting a kicking. The mob descend on him and then some bloke says, no, leave him alone, he's not a Jew. I mean, that is chilling. That is absolutely chilling.
I mean, Charlie, this is... I mean, you're not a football fan, are you?
I am, yes. I'm an Arsenal fan.
So you're not
That's a football fan? You're not a football fan. Sorry, you walked straight into that one, Charlie. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
So all together now.
That was a bit naughty. Sorry, Charlie. But, I mean, this is basically people being targeted for their faith, not what football club they support.
Yes, and I haven't I got back from the States last night, so I haven't seen all the footage and haven't seen. But there are reports on of people asking to see people's passports.
Well, no, this lad said he's not Israeli, he's a Ukrainian, and they said prove it. Now that is, that's 1939. Somebody said they woke up this morning in 1939.
Yes. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And that is absolutely disgusting and foreign. And whoever that was, obviously, should feel the full force of the law. But there has to what is, upsetting, I suppose, is one way of putting it. Where we were talking about Remembrance Sunday at the very top of the programme. It was Christmas Eve where Germany and allied UK forces sort of put aside their differences to play a football match. Football brings people together. Sports should bring people together. Music should bring people together. So whether it's a song contest, whether it's a football match between, the footballers on. Playing for the Israeli side, I've forgotten who they are now.
Maccabi Tel Aviv.
There you are. You've got nothing to do with the conflict. You've got nothing to do with what's going on in the Middle East. Fans should be there just to celebrate the football, to engage in the sporting event, to actually take the heat out of, when politics and conflicts in that setting arises. It should be sports and entertainment and other sectors that should bring peace and harmony.
I could play devil's advocate slightly here because the people were saying that the Israeli fans were removing Palestinian flags that were hanging from balconies and homes in Amsterdam. So they were making it political as well, weren't they?
And those people have no right to do that. Whatever your views, if people want to hang a flag on their own personal property, so long as it's not offensive or inciting hate speech. then that is absolutely fine. It's up to that individual. So those fans shouldn't have been doing that. But you would have hoped, whenever you go to a football match, you're always going to, as Peter says, you're always going to get a few bad apples that want to stir the pot, that are there for other reasons to cause trouble. But the majority of the other fans on your own side will actually call you out for it. And I think, hopefully it's obviously got to a point where it's boiled over and it's become sort of, chaos.
These weren't Ajax fans who were doing. I think we should make that clear. But something's extraordinary about this.
Ajax fans are basically, they're the Tottenham of Amsterdam, aren't they? They have more Jewish supporters than any other club.
They're like Roma. They're like a lot of other clubs. But what's extraordinary about this is Israel's in a state of war at the moment with full mobilisation of everybody aged over 18 to 44. So presumably these people are either servicemen or servicemen and women on leave. And yet I didn't even know there were direct flights from Tel Aviv into Amsterdam at the present time. And yet I see that the Israelis have then sent 2 or 3 planes to take them back. So it makes me wonder, were they actually from Israel or were they actually local lads? It just seemed extraordinary that a country under full mobilisation. Imagine in 1940, if there was a whole load of British football supporters went to play somewhere. This wouldn't happen. So I'm just wondering who they were, where they were, and what's going on here.
Well, I was reading an interview with one British lad who was supporting our the Israeli club, and he was out there and he said it was nothing to do with me being an Israeli, because I'm not. I'm British. Yeah. And yet he was getting attacked as well. I just want to, just very, very quickly. So is anti-Semitism now almost accepted as a form of racism?
I'm afraid it's everywhere. I'm afraid there are people in just about every European country who claim that they are pro-Palestinian and pro-Palestinian only, whereas actually they support murderous terrorist organisations who want to wipe the Jewish faith off the entire face of the earth. That's the problem we're facing. It's only going to get worse. Buckle up and brace yourselves.
OK, fine. Thank you very much. We'll leave on that very strong, powerful opinion. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Stephen Pound, Charlie Rowlett and Peter Blexley, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. Bit of showbiz, it's a Saturday, why wouldn't we? A showbiz journalist, Stephanie Tecci, will have your weekly dose of entertainment, as well as Paddington 3, which is finally out in cinemas. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Young adults spend a few years living away from home at university, those who go to university, but many then have no choice but to move back in with their parents because of the rising cost of renting.
But is this an excuse, and are Gen Z or Z just being lazy?
I mean, what do you make of it, Debbie? Because we do have to have some sympathy, don't we, in that, rents are very high, it's very hard to get a mortgage. There are issues there.
I think the push towards young people to go to university as well is not necessarily the right thing for a lot of people. And I think people should start work early. These guys leave their universities with a huge amount of debt, no jobs, or huge rent. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. So I think we've got to look at the work ethic and start it younger. Because I think it's so easy just to move back with your mum and dad, isn't it?
To speak like a Gen Zer, they would say that, well, it's OK for your generation, you had it easy.
Realistically, that isn't quite that true, because a lot of people then didn't go to university. This is a relatively new thing that everybody goes to university.
I have to say, what strikes me today is that you still have, amongst all these problems, not having enough money, going to university when perhaps you shouldn't be, all these sort of issues, you still get all these people saying, well, I'm going to have a year out.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. And I think the thing is, they say, oh, it was easy for you, but it wasn't really. We still had to rent places.
But the thing is with this debate, Debbie, is the generation we're talking about, Gen Z, who we're accusing of being lazy, have been raised by our generation.
Yeah.
So what have we done wrong that, if they are lazier, has made them like that?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. And we saved the best till last. She needs no introduction, does she? Stephanie Tetchy is here with us.
Hello, Dawn.
Looking stunning. And have you noticed hair matching frock?
Yeah, I was just getting bored of black hair. I was like, I need to do something drastic. I was like, just go for purple.
It's stunning.
Purple Rain.
You need your own show.
Oh,
but
stop it.
You're talking about, what are you talking about?
Paddington 3 is in cinemas this weekend, and I'm really excited about it because it's one of those franchises. The late Queen loved Paddington Bear, and rightly so. It's the first film in 7 years, so it's been a while. It's definitely been a while, and it's been in the making, and it's going to be open in 732 cinemas this weekend, so it's going to be a banker. So far, both films so far have grossed £80 million, both in the UK and Ireland, and it comes back with some new characters, including Olivia Colman and Antonio Banderas, so it is going to be an interesting one. At the premiere last week, Ben Whishaw was talking about the character of Paddington, and he says the reason why people love Paddington so much, it makes you want to embrace kindness, because even though Paddington is quintessentially British, he is actually a migrant.
He's a migrant, but he didn't come over on a boat.
No, he didn't. But yeah, Ben Whishaw was saying it helps people to understand of being kind to vulnerable people. But hey, we don't want Paddington to go too woke. We don't want it to go too woke.
Go broke, Paddington.
But it is going to open in cinemas, and if any of our viewers are going to go watch it, I'll say stay past the credits, because there's two surprise
they did that
scenes.
On the last one.
Yeah, and this time it's not one, but it's two.
Oh, God.
So it's going to be...
I hated myself, but I was almost in tears at the end of the last
I know,
one.
I love Paddington, so yeah, I am definitely going to watch it, so I'll say highly recommend to go see it. And we've also had some sad news from Hollywood this week. Tony Todd, most viewers might not know him, but he was in Candyman, the lead star. I used to be frightened of him galore, but he passed away on Wednesday from natural causes, age 69. I think when you think of Candyman and that horror film, he was definitely one of those iconic characters, but he'd done other things, other horrors, including Final Destination, so he will be sadly missed. I think when those kind of actors go, their work do tend to live on, and Candyman is just one of the favourites.
Yeah, no, I love those films. Just quickly, I'm a Celebrity is coming back.
It's coming.
And Deck.
Yeah.
Why is it so popular? Just quickly, I can't get my head around why it's so.
Do you know what it is? I think we've become that generation where we've been fed so much about celebrities. Getting to see them going through rough it in the jungle is what makes people interesting. Production-wise, it's a money earner for ITV and all those places, because they get good advertising for it, and then also people just want to know what's going on with these celebrities.
Well, we'll leave it on Kangaroo's Willies.
Oh, we will.
We will. Yeah. Thank you very much, Stephanie.
Thank you, Dawn.
Showbiz expert. Well, I've been Dawn Neeson. This has been GB News. Thank you for joining me. Don't go anywhere, though, because it's a fiery debate with Nana Aquia. But first, it's the very all-important weekend weather. I'll see you tomorrow lunchtime. Have a good evening. Take care.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. After a gloomy few days, it does look like changes on the way as we head into next week, but the next couple of days still remaining quite cloudy with some patchy rain and drizzle. Thanks to these weather fronts out towards the west of the UK, they'll be slowly pushing their way eastwards through the rest of today and into tomorrow. That does mean quite a cloudy end to the day for most of us today. Northern and western parts of Scotland seeing some clearer spells to end the day, and that's slowly pushing its way north and eastwards as we go through the early hours of Sunday morning. We do see a weather front arriving, though, from the northwest overnight tonight and into the start of Sunday. Quite a mild night, particularly across southern and western areas where we see that thicker cloud. However, anywhere that does see those clearer spells could be turning a little chilly with temperatures in the low single figures. So starting the day on Sunday then, across the southern and western parts of the UK, there will be some patchy clear spells around, and that could lead to the odd patch of mist and fog in places, but generally quite a cloudy and grey start to the day. Quite a damp start across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, but it's western parts of Scotland that will see the dampest start to the day.